Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read a bunch of crazy books and then I tell you all about them. Today we are continuing the thriller series on the channel. We are reading The Good Sister by Sally Hempworth. This was published in 2020, 300 pages. And on Goodreads, it's rated a 4.14 with a little over 200,000 ratings. The book description is as follows. There's only been one time that Rose couldn't stop me from doing the wrong thing, and that was a mistake that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Fern Castle works in her local library. She has dinner with her twin sister Rose 3 nights a week, and she avoids crowds, bright lights, and loud noises as much as possible. Fern has a carefully structured life, and disrupting her routine can be dangerous. When Rose discovers that she cannot get pregnant, Fern sees her chance to pay her sister back for everything that Rose has done for her. Fern can have a baby for Rose. She just needs to find a father. Simple. Fern's mission will shake the foundation of the life she has carefully built for herself and stir up dark secrets from the past in this quirky, rich, and shocking story of what families keep hidden. So I think this book is really good. It's kind of interesting. As you can tell from a little bit of the description of Fern, she is definitely neurodivergent in some capacity. I am about halfway through the book, so it hasn't been revealed or confirmed. She never received a formal diagnosis, at least like through childhood up to the point where I am now in the book. So I'm just kind of speaking that out there. I think it's handled well and responsible, and she's treated as an adult who is like functioning and on her own versus the way that we've heard of neurodivergent people spoken of in other books by other authors that we've read recently, where they're very like childlike or just treated weird or like othered. This isn't that way at all. Like, this is from her perspective, her life, how she handles everything, and how she goes about it. So our book is alternating points of view from Fern living her life currently, and then from a journal entry or like a series of journal entries from her twin sister Rose. It's a really interesting dynamic, very clear and distinct voices between the two sisters, and it's a little chaotic. It's a little crazy. Like I said, I'm kind of into it. I'm going to get you guys caught up to where I've read so far, and then we'll continue on and do almost like a reading vlog style. I'm doing that more and more here recently, just so we can make some theories as we go, right? And I can go into this and kind of experience the mysteries of it all and the twists and the turns with you and give some more like genuine reactions to things, you know what I mean? So that's what the plan is. If you're new to the channel, hey, thanks for being here. I'm glad you're here. I do a beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdown. So this review will contain all of the spoilers, so don't continue if you want to read this. I do recommend it. Like I said, so far I'm enjoying it. If you want to check it out and then come back and watch this as more of like a book club discussion, you know what I'm saying? The other disclaimer that I like to put on these is that this is not for the other. It's not for friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. My reviews are for fellow readers. I'm just here to gossip. I'm just a lady on the internet trying to have a good time. I have one rule, and one rule only on this channel. Say it with me if you know what it is. Don't make it weird. Okay, that's all I ask of you people. And I do have merch coming out here soon. It'll be in the next probably week or two. I'll have a link that'll go live for about 2 weeks to do some ordering of shirts, hats, and sweatshirts that say "Don't Make It Weird" and that say "Read Rant Review." So look forward to that. I wish I had an example, but they're making it right now. I don't have it with me. I'm so freaking excited, dude. So look forward to that. I think that's the only other housekeeping thing I have. And then the final disclaimer that I like to put on my videos is a content warning so that you know what we're getting into. So there is abuse and trauma, such as like child neglect. There is SA of a minor, gaslighting and manipulation, forced institutionalization and control issues, infertility, death of a parent and child death. There's murder, and then there is the depiction of Fern being neurodivergent and kind of what she's going through and some of the anxiety and panic attacks and everything that she has when she gets overwhelmed or overstimulated. So there's some pretty graphic isn't the right word, like detailed, I guess, descriptions of these like panic attacks and like feelings and everything that she's going through. So if that's something that's concerning for you in any way. And then the SA, I will gloss over. I'm not going to go into much detail about any of that, but just so you have a heads up in case you decide to go and read this book yourself. Now, Without further ado, I'll go ahead and read you the first little bit of chapter 1 so you can get a taste for the reading, or for the writing style rather, and yeah, we'll figure it out. Chapter 1, Journal of Rose Ingrid Castle. It's been 3 months since Owen left me. Like so many things in the adult world, it's a bit gray. He took a job in London, a work opportunity ostensibly. It's not that I wasn't invited, but it was clear to both of us that I couldn't go. That's another thing about the adult world, responsibilities. In my case, one particular responsibility, Fern. But let me backtrack, because it sounds like I'm blaming her. I'm not. The problems between Owen and me are 100% unequivocally entirely my fault. I committed the most cardinal of marital sins. I changed. Overnight, as soon as the clock chimed my 27th birthday, in fact, I went from being a well-educated, empowered woman to one of those pathetic women who wanted a baby with such ferocity it drove my husband away. An ovulation kit-wielding, sperm-testing, temperature-taking lunatic. In my previous life, I'd scorned this type of woman from up in my, what I presumed to be, fertile ivory tower. Then I'd become one, and I'd pushed and I'd pushed and I'd pushed until my husband left me. My therapist is right. It is a relief getting these thoughts out of my head and onto paper. In therapy, we hardly talk about Owen at all. Instead, we while away the 50-minute hours talking about my traumatic childhood. According to him, a good way to process trauma and put it behind you is to write it down. That's why he gave me this journal. I'm not convinced it will help, but here I am. Apparently, the people pleaser in me dies hard. The obvious place to start is the night at the river. I was 12. We were camping. Mum and Daniel had been dating for about 6 months. Also, P.S. by the way, this is occurring in Australia. These are Australian folks, which I don't think I haven't read a book yet that's based out of there. So hi to all my Australian listeners. Love you guys. So yes, they'd been dating for about 6 months, but it was the first time that we'd been away anywhere together. Daniel brought Billy, much to my and Fern's delight. We'd forever longed for a brother and all of those wonderful traits a brother brought with him. Roughhousing, logical arguments, and good-looking friends. And for the first few days, we had a good time. Better than good. It was the closest that I'd ever come to being part of a normal family. So it's very, very sweet, right? And she continues to have this recollection, except on one of the nights, a couple times into it, it was late. Her, Billy, and Fern go out to the river to go and swim. And while they're out there, she goes pee, and she goes deep into the woods because she doesn't want to be embarrassed and have Billy see her. And by the time she returns, Fern isn't where she left her, which is weird because Fern never really moves without her. But when she looks to the river, Fern is standing there. Before I could ask what was going on, something rose to the surface of the water beside her, a sliver of pale, unmoving flesh. Fern, I whispered, what have you done? Crazy way to open a book, right? And so then we go to Fern's perspective. Fern works at a library. On this specific day, it's time for toddler rhyme time, and she goes on describing about how she really likes it because of the rhythm of it all, and like the reading of the stories is really soothing to her, but she doesn't like being in the room because children are unpredictable with their loud noises and wails, and so she's just at the front counter watching all of this. And then this lady walks up to her and just stands at the desk in front of her and is there. Finally, she clicks her fingernails against the desk. Excuse me, I repeat, rolling the statement around in my head. It feels unlikely that she is actually asking to be excused. After all, patrons are free to come and go as they please in the library. They don't have to ask for the privilege. It's possible, I suppose, that she's asking to be excused for impoliteness, but as I didn't hear her belch or fart, that also seems improbable. As such, I conclude that she's employed the odd social custom of asking to be excused as a means of getting a person's attention. I open my mouth to tell her that she has my attention, but people are so impatient nowadays that she cuts me off before I can speak. Do you work here? She asks rudely. And then she goes thinking, and she's like, obviously I work here. I have a name tag. I'm sitting behind the desk. Why wouldn't I work here? Like, why would she ask me this? And the lady's like, so finally she asks, she's like, do you need something? Like, can I help you? And the lady is like, yeah, why else would I be standing here? And she says, there's a bunch of reasons you could be standing here. And she goes off like rattling them, right? She's like, the water station's right there. You could be just organizing your papers. You could be reading one of the flyers. You could be looking at something behind me. She's like, I don't know what you need. Just tell me. But before she can do this, one of her coworkers comes up and kind of like intercepts, right? Intervenes into the situation, and is very like bubbly personality, outgoing, and kind of like deflects, right? Kind of changes the trajectory of this interaction, which is good. And she's like, this is always helpful when Carmel is her name, comes over and helps with these types of things. I then spend the day recommending books, processing returns, and avoiding questions about the photocopiers. Depending on the particular day, I might also order new books, set up the conference room for author talks or community meetings, or put together book packages for the home library service. I try to avoid conversations about things other than books, although I'll occasionally indulge Gail in conversation about her garden or her grandchildren because Rose said that it's polite to do this with people that we like. So that's what I mean. There is this like acknowledgement and processing of like the initial way that she sees a situation, logicking her way through it of like how she initially feels, and then the social cues and guidance that she's received from her sister and that she's like learned over time. And so it's not this like infantilizing. It could be completely off base. If this is like a really, really offensive way that they're talking about this, I would love for you to explain that to me, because I think this is done well. But again, I might just be talking out of my ass. I can't speak for this group of folks. You know what I'm saying? So then this guy walks in and he goes towards the bathrooms. And she sees that he has some like ill-fitting pants. And she's like, I wonder if he is unhoused. And so she grabs a toiletry bag and she goes to follow him to give it to him and say as much. And so she asks if he's taking a shower. And she calls him Wally because he looks like Where's Wally, which for Americans, it's Where's Waldo. And they end up just having this pretty brief exchange where the closer that she gets to him, she's like, well, wait a second, because he has really, really clean fingernails and he doesn't smell bad. And I look closer at him and he has the general air of a vagrant, I think is how it's described. But he's clearly not homeless, so maybe I misjudged, because he goes on to also say that he's not unhoused, that he lives in a van and that it's a lifestyle choice. And we'll unpack that in a minute. We talk about it quite a bit. But he, appreciates her helping him out. So anyway, she goes back into the library. We get some more history talking about how there was a year where her mom took her and her sister to the library every single day. And that was like her favorite time. And that's when she fell in love with the library. And there was a specific, they like befriended the librarian that was there, and she taught them how to read and use the computers and was like really involved with the girls. And so when they ended up finally going to school, they were able to skip prep and went straight into grade 1. Mom was very proud of this. Lots of people said things to us like, what a wonderful mom you must have, and your mom must have spent a lot of time reading to you. The first time someone said that, I started to point out that no, it wasn't Mom who spent time reading to us, but then Rose tapped her bracelet against mine. Mom had given us our bracelets when we were born. Mine was engraved with a fern and Rose's with a rose. Somewhere along the way, they became our way of talking to each other without talking. Rose always taps her bracelet against mine as a warning. Stop. It's a good system that almost always works. There's only been one time that Rose couldn't stop me from doing the wrong thing, and that was a mistake that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Okay, interesting. And so this is also what I'm saying, too, about the different perspectives. Journal entry, from Rose's perspective, that is a little bit more touchy-feely, flowery, versus Fern's very, very straightforward, like observational way that she's kind of like reporting, I guess, arguably more factual of like, this is what happened and this is blah, 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 and this is blah, blah, blah. And as we go, we're going to continue to get this different perspective of them talking about the same situations and the different ways that they like interpreted it or experienced it and whatnot. And then so we're led to question, who's the unreliable narrator? Or is it just a matter of the way that families interpret things, right? It's interesting them being twins. I feel like there's a lot of times where family memories will be interpreted differently when there's like an age difference, right? Like the elder sister and the youngest sibling or whatever, they interpret things significantly different because they've had different life experiences up until that point. So for the twins to go through it at the same exact time, experiencing the same exact mother and situations, to have such different experiences would lead us to believe that there is, in fact, an unreliable narrator. Something to keep in mind. And this gets proven in this next chapter when we go back into Rose's journal entry, where when she's reflecting on that year that they spent going to the library all the time, Rose has the entry that says, You know something funny? I don't even think Fern knows that we were homeless that year. She probably told herself it was an adventure or holiday or an experience, or maybe she didn't tell herself anything at all. She had a gift for accepting life the way it was rather than questioning it. Whoa, why is that hard for me to read? Rather than questioning it. Some days, heck, every day, I envy her for that, right? And so Rose's memory of this year sucked because they were homeless and couch surfing and just staying with like whoever they could of mom's friends, and it was just bad. She also goes on to have this additional memory where Fern had told the librarian about them being homeless, and Rose took the fall for it because she was protecting Fern and didn't want Fern to, face their mother's wrath. So that night, whenever they ended up in the house that they were staying in and they got food, the mom only ordered food for herself and for Fern, and then Rose had to sleep on the floor instead of on the couch, and went to bed hungry. But she woke up in the middle of the night to Fern laying next to her on the floor, like holding her to keep her warm. And this chapter ends with, most people think of me as Fern's protector, but the truth is, in her own funny way, she has always been mine. In this next chapter, from Fern's perspective, she is going over to Rose's house for dinner. This is one of the 3 nights a week that they have dinner together. She goes in, house is beautiful. We learn that they are fraternal twins, so they look pretty different. Rose is a little bit shorter, more petite, I think more blonde. And then Fern has reddish hair. She's taller. We learn about this. Rose also has a dog named Alfie, which is a very, very cute name. And Rose says, hey, where's the milk at? I asked you to bring milk. You said that you were going to stop on the way over. And Fern is mortified. She has a photographic memory. She's like, I don't forget things. This isn't like me. She's like, I don't understand why I always do stuff wrong. This is so weird. I don't remember her asking me this at all. Rose says, don't worry about it. I'll figure something out. Rose is also type 1 diabetic, and so she has to check her blood before they have dinner. And so Fern takes a walk around the house because blood makes her squeamish. While she's walking around, she goes upstairs and finds Rose's suitcase. She's packing up to go and visit her husband, Owen, who has been gone for 3 months in London, like we learned from the initial diary entry. So she's packing to head over there. She'll be gone for 4 weeks, and this is the longest that the sisters have ever been apart. So Fern is very, very nervous, right? She doesn't know if she can function without her sister. Like, her sister's a little bit of a caretaker, a little bit of like making sure she's on the right track, and obviously, she can't even remember to bring milk. Like, she needs her sister around, Might be a little codependent, not gonna lie, but it is what it is. There's a fine line, right? While she's next to the suitcase, she accidentally, I think, kicks it open or something and ends up seeing a bottle that is in there that is vitamins for pregnancy. So she asks Rose, are you trying to get pregnant? And Rose is having difficulty. She has what she called premature ovarian aging. So she has the ovaries of a 50-year-old woman, but they are in their, I think, very late 20s, if not just turned 30. So she's having a really difficult time conceiving, really hoping that this time going out and visiting her husband, that she'll actually be able to have a baby this time around. Fern hears this news, asks if this is something genetic and if she has it. When she finds out that that's not the case, Fern is internally thinking, this is great. I'm not capable of raising a baby, and that's that. I've made peace with it. But suddenly my interest in babies is piqued. If my eggs do turn out to be youthful, maybe there could be a use for them after all. This could be my chance to pay Rose back for everything that she's always done for me. They have dinner. They go about their ways. The following day at the library, Fern is doing some deep dive research on being a surrogate and what that means and the different ways that you can conceive, right? If it's the in vitro fertilization, you can use your own egg, you can use a donor egg, a donor sperm or the sperm of the person that you're doing the surrogacy for. She's like, honestly, that sounds really disgusting. And she's like, I'm not going to sleep with my sister's husband. That sounds gross. The simplest way to have Rose's baby would be to become pregnant naturally by a man who isn't Owen. This method would have no prohibitive cost, no medical treatment, no need for Rose or Owen to be involved at all. In fact, if I were to become pregnant quickly enough, I could even surprise Rose with news of my pregnancy upon her return from her trip. What a happy homecoming that would be. I would, of course, require a man to have intercourse with, but that shouldn't be too difficult. By all reports, men are desperate for intercourse. Apparently, they can be found at nearly every bar and club prowling for women to have no strings attached intercourse with. Unfortunately, I don't go to bars or clubs, but surely men congregate in other places too. And so she's in the middle of doing research for like Tinder and a couple other things when Wally walks back in. And so she goes and has an additional conversation with him. And it's noted that whenever she does this, he doesn't look her in the eyes, which she really appreciates. He looks just over her left shoulder. So he has a really difficult time maintaining eye contact in any way. So you can imagine her interest is a little piqued because as she continues to talk to him, she's realizing more and more like, oh, he has really, really nice teeth and he takes care of it. And him saying that he lives in a van and that it's by choice, maybe that is the case. So he came over to the library desk to ask for help with the printer because he's having a difficult time hooking it up or printing a document or whatever. She goes over, she's trying to assist him, ends up seeing the document that he has pulled up, and it's a contract of some sort. And she realizes, oh my God, you're a computer programmer. And he says, yeah. She's like, why do you need me to help you with a printer? He says, I do computer programming. I don't hook up stuff to printers. I just help me. Like, that's not the problem. Anyway, back and forth. It's kind of cute. He is a dual citizen, American and Australian. He is here working freelance, right? He's like, I could have a job. I could have a house. It's not that I can't afford it. Like, I'm kind of offended that you think I'm unhoused. Like, this is all by choice that I'm doing these things. By choice that I do freelance work and don't have a 9 to 5. Like, no, I don't want to work at the library with you. I'm fine doing what I'm doing. I make money, blah, blah, blah. It's a little bit of kind of a cute back and forth banter. Okay. And then she's also noting during this conversation with him that he's handsome in kind of a weird way. And he's a lot more fit than she thought. At first she thought he was kind of lanky, but he definitely has a lot more of like an athletic build. And he's obviously smart and he appears to take care of himself. And obviously he said he has like a good job and stuff. And so she says, how's your health, Wally? The softness in his eyes is replaced with suspicion. It's excellent. I jog every morning, 10 kilometers. I smile. For once, the library computer service has brought me some good fortune. He smiles back at me a little uncertainly until I pose my next question. Would you like to go on a date with me? His smile falls away. It's cute, okay? But also it's really scary because I know she's just trying to get with this man to have his baby. And that also really scares me. But the way that they banter is kind of cute. I don't know. We'll get into it. The following chapter 7, is another entry into like Rose's journal. And she's talking about how nervous she is to go and see Owen and how she's afraid that maybe this time away from her, he's pulled away and maybe he's asking her to come to London to visit, to like formally call things off with her. Maybe he's cheating on her. She doesn't really know. She's really nervous, but she's hoping to go out there and maybe rekindle the relationship, have the baby or get pregnant, you know what I mean? Do all this stuff. And then she goes on to reflect about how, you know, maybe I don't deserve this. I don't deserve good things since I'm not a good person. And all of these like negative self-talk and this like negative self-perception I have comes from my mother's abuse and the way that she treated us. And I always felt like I had to perform and be good enough for her. And she acknowledges how there was always this like impenetrable boundary that Fern had to their mother's reign of terror. I often wondered if that boundary was part and parcel of whatever was different about Fern, but Mom never took her for an official diagnosis. Giving Fern a diagnosis or help would have made her special, and Mom was the only one that was allowed to be special in the house. And then she goes on to tell like another story of childhood abuse where their mom had them color on a coffee table, like told them to color on the coffee table. And so Fern, or do their homework on the table, whatever it was like some instruction. And Fern ended up writing directly on the table instead of like on the pieces of homework paper on top of the table. Does that make sense? Like she took it very, very literal. So the mom was irate about this. Rose tried to take the fall for it. Mom realized that she was lying, that Fern did it. So then as like a repercussion, she broke all of their toys. And Rose just sat there thinking about how she would have rathered her mom hit her than to get rid of the toys or like negatively impact Fern. At this point, we are about 15% of the way through the book. So we're going through pretty quick. A similar vein, Fern's chapter opens up with her thinking about childhood and how much she really enjoyed school. She really, really enjoyed the structure of it and knowing what every day looked like for her. The only issue was that school is very loud. Kids are very rowdy, bells are loud, everything like that. And their mom really wanted them to be a part of this like swim team situation going on, and she didn't want to because it's in a really hot, humid, big room with a whole bunch of people. So Rose held her hand and like dragged her into this overwhelming space, which made her feel even worse. Rose like drags her to the very back, like highest seated area in this like gymnasium, auditorium, swimming pool, whatever the heck this thing is in there. So she's just surrounded by people, really, really bad. Ends up having like a panic attack. She's like down on the ground, kind of crouched, like covering her ears, trying to like find some semblance of silence. And then one of the coaches comes up, touches her. She freaks out, ends up like elbowing him in the face and breaking his nose, and like spirals a little bit. Really, really negative reactions here. And when she got called to the principal had commented that the greatest concern is the fact that she hasn't even shown any remorse. I told her that, to the contrary, all I felt was relief because it could have been so much worse. I knew in that moment that I could have killed someone. Oh, well, that's kind of scary. Okay, so we're going to go back to the present day real quick. Wally did agree to go on a date. His name is actually Roscoe. Or something Roscoe. I don't know. I don't have it written down in my notes. His name is not Wally, but he lets her call him that because it's whatever, right? So they go on this date. They're going to go on a picnic because she doesn't like doing restaurants or movies or malls or anything like that because it's the same thing. It's all too overwhelming. So they're just going to go to a picnic at the botanical gardens. She brought a blanket that she knows isn't scratchy and isn't bad that they'll be able to sit on. And then he brings the food. And when she opens up the little basket thing of the food, there is so much in there. Like, it's really nice quality, a lot of things. And she's really surprised by it. And again, he reiterates the fact of like, I have money. Like, I have money to eat. I don't know why you're being weird about this. I told you I have a job. This is all just a lifestyle choice of mine. So she continues to ask about him, right? They have this back and forth, and it's very, very, again, sweet. Eventually he asks about her. She opens up about her mom, how mom wasn't the greatest, I guess. It feels like a betrayal for some reason. I don't like speaking badly of her. It feels wrong somehow. Rose doesn't feel bad about it. She said that her and mom never got along, even when we were kids. I remember hiding in the closet with Rose when we were 10 after mom and Rose had argued about something. Fern, I know you don't understand this, she had said, but mom isn't a good mom, and you have to do what I say, otherwise I can't protect you. She isn't good, okay? And she says, mom overdosed when I was 12, and my sister and I were put into foster care. Wow, Fern, that's awful. I focus on the remains of the food. I was lucky I had Rose. She's my twin sister. And he doesn't react to this. She's really surprised because anytime she's ever said that she has a twin sister, people get really weird about it and ask a bunch of questions, but he doesn't. He just moves on. And this makes her happy because she doesn't like talking about herself. She wants to just continue the conversation elsewhere. It gets a little awkwardly quiet, and so she goes on to say, Rose is my person, I tell him. Wally blinks. Your person? You know, your person, your wife or husband, your child, your boyfriend, your best friend, someone whose name you can put down on paperwork, someone you can share personal information with, someone you can rely on. Date continues on, conversation gets kind of awkward, and she's sitting there reflecting because she watched so many rom-coms. She went on like a rom-com marathon last night to be prepared for this date for it to go as well as possible. The first stage of each date was either a little dull or unequivocal disaster where the person arrived late or dressed entirely inappropriate clothing. The next stage involved each party sharing something personal. The final stage invariably involved a wacky incident, such as a bird coming to eat the couple's food or someone spilling a drink all over the other, forcing all parties to escape amid a cloud of hilarity, which inevitably turned into a romance later in the show. As such, I determined that the wacky incident was the most crucial of the 3 stages. I glance around for a potential wacky incident, and finding none, I open my water bottle and pour its contents over our remaining food. At a loss for what to do next, I throw back my head and laugh loudly. Wally's eyes boggle. What the? Fern, are you all right? His enunciation is made particularly perfect by his bewilderment. My laugh dies down to an uncertain giggle. I don't know. You might be the strangest person I've ever met. You know that? Wally says, shaking his head. And just as I am thinking things aren't going to plan, he laughs. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I like it. An hour later, Wally and I pack up the picnic. And she's feeling irritable. And she realizes it's because her phone is blowing up. She has missed a lot of phone calls from her sister. And anytime she gets a phone call or a text message from her sister, she gets this like anxiety of like, what did I do wrong now? Like, what did I mess up? And so when she answers the phone call, Rose says, hey, how's Alfie doing? I had a neighbor called and they said that they've just been hearing Alfie barking a whole bunch. Fern's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, Fern, you were supposed to be watching him. She does not remember this. She does not remember her sister asking. And it's been 4 days since Rose has left to London. And so this poor puppy has just been at this house without any food or water or anything and just freaking out. And so she feels so freaking guilty bad. So she looks at Wally, asks if he can drive her over to that house. And he says, yeah, of course. So they get over there and luckily the dog is okay. He's listless because he hasn't had food or water for a couple of days and he's been outside the whole time. So they immediately pick him up and take him to the vet. Fern is like almost catatonic because of how guilty she feels about this. And it's the same thing. She does not remember her sister asking her to do this. And so Wally is already maybe a little bit concerned because he's like, that doesn't seem like something that you would forget. And she's like, I know, I don't think I would, but like if she said it, then it has to be true. Like I don't know. She just feels so bad. And she's like, this is why I can't take care of a baby. Like this is exactly why I can't, take care of anything. I can't even take care of myself. I can't be reliable, blah, blah, blah. She just feels so incredibly bad. So they pick up the dog and Wally drives them to the vet. While in there, he's able to persuade them to not call the services to come and collect the dog. And he reassures the vet that this was a misunderstanding, that it was just a miscommunication, but she's in the best hands. Like the dog is in the best hands possible. She's like really flattered by this comment from this guy. The vet says that he needs 24-hour care and that if she's working as a librarian and gone for hours at a time, then that's unacceptable. Wally says, no, I stay home and take care of the dog. The dog won't be alone any second of the day. Like he'll always have somebody with him. Vet says, okay, here's the instructions. Here's what, you need to do to get Alfie back to 100%. And they go on about their way. Wally goes to drop Fern and Alfie off at her house. And same thing. Fern is like, all of the mail was picked up at Rose's house. And if somebody was picking up the mail for her, why wouldn't they have just taken care of Alfie too? And if I was going to take care of Alfie, why wouldn't I have just said that I would keep him at my house instead? I don't know. Wally asks this as well. And he's like, maybe your sister forgot to ask you. I mean, she was packing and had all of this stuff going on to go and, visit her husband and all these other things that you told me. Like, maybe she just forgot to ask. No, it can't happen. Rose is on top of everything. She knows everything. Like, I'm the one that can't do stuff right. Okay. She's like, did you mean it? Did you mean it when you said that you'd come over when I was working and take care of Alfie? He says, yeah, I did. I don't say things that I don't mean. Oh, that's so cute. So drops her off and says he'll be back Monday to, be there at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever to begin watching the dog. When she goes to sleep that night, Fern has a nightmare about that night on the river, right? The one where the boy died. And it is just bringing all of this back to surface about how she can't take care of anything. Our next chapter is another entry from Rose. The meeting with Owen is going good so far. And it would have been going great minus this whole Fern situation and Fern forgetting to take care of Alfie. And she's like, I should have known better. I shouldn't have done anything for Fern that would be like outside of her routine. I don't know why I expected any different. She's just so like high functioning sometimes that like I forget that there's still things to be concerned about. And so she's like, so I have to leave early and go back now because I can't leave her alone for so long. I hate leaving because you guessed it, our mom. And she goes on with like more childhood trauma and discussing about how their mom always threatened to leave them. And anytime that they got into any type of fight, the mom would just leave for like hours, days, sometimes on end and just like abandon them. And then she would return and be like overly kind, right? To try to like make up for it or whatever. When mom was happy, I was terrified because I knew it would be terrible once she got upset again. And when she was upset, I was terrified because I didn't know what she would do and she would leave us and blah, blah, blah. And it was just this like endless cycle of just not feeling comfortable and not wanting to leave, right? Because again, with the whole moving everywhere and couch surfing and the mom abandoning them, it's just a lot of trauma, right? She just went through like a whole bunch when she was a kid. As promised, when Monday rolls around, Wally shows up to take care of Alfie while she goes off to work. While she's at work, her boss, Carmel, approaches her and asks why she hasn't signed up for bowling, which is kind of weird because it sounds more like a statement than a question. Turns out that this is more of a voluntold situation where everybody's required to go bowling, and she's kind of dreading it, understandably, because of the sounds and the smells and the colors and just everything. It's just going to be a overstimulating nightmare, which is why she has not signed up for it yet. And so she tells Carmel straight up, like, I hate bowling. And then Carmel gets upset and kind of storms off. And so Fern is like, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to her again until my conversation skills can improve, because that didn't go very well. While at work, Wally ends up showing up, and he's freshly shaven, and he's not wearing his silly goofy hat and the shirt that he always does. He's dressed up in a suit and a tie, and he has Alfie with him, because he had this like really, really important meeting that came up all of a sudden, and he apologizes profusely, but he has to go and do this because it's an interview of sorts with an old partner of his for a project they worked on previously, and maybe they can work together again, and it's just a really, really big deal. And he's like, I brought Alfie with me because I know you'd be worried otherwise. Taking the dog from him, saying thank you, and then Carmel comes out and brings up the bowling situation. And he's like, oh my God, well, lucky for you, I am an excellent bowler. And so she invites him to go and to be her +1. And so now they're going to go on their second date, and they're going to go bowling together with all of her coworkers. And as Carmel introduces herself to him, he says, my name's not Wally, my name is Rocco Ryan. He extends his hand to Carmel. I think Carmel is going to protest, but instead she takes his hand. Rocco Ryan? She stares at Wally for a moment, then shakes her head. Okay, fine, yeah, I'll put you both down. But Fern, that dog has got to go, because she's not allowed to have a dog in the library. So that's odd. Why does she know Wally's real name? Why'd she say it like that? Luckily, Fern knows of this like secret hiding room in the library that one of her previous bosses had showed her for whenever she got too like overwhelmed and like overstimulated there. For when the library became too much for her, there's this like little, they call it like a little cupboard. Fern is the only one with a key for it. So it's like her little secret getaway space. And so she takes Alfie back there and only leaves him for a couple minutes at a time to go out and do rounds just to kind of show face. One of the times when she comes out, another one of her coworkers stops her and says that there was a man looking for her, but it wasn't Wally, but it was another guy, like clean cut, 30s. Yeah, said he was a friend of yours. She's really confused because she doesn't have friends. They're like, yeah, I don't know. He didn't leave a message, but he said he'd be back. And she says, okay, well, I guess I'll see him when he comes back then. That's odd. She goes on about her day. Yet again, another one of the times she goes out doing her rounds, she sees Wally come in, and he must not have seen her because he storms right past her going to the bathrooms and like the showers and whatnot. And he doesn't stop for her. And so she's like, hey, how'd the meeting go? And he's very, very frustrated. And she ends up asking him a bunch of questions, and she's not picking up that he's had a bad day, and she's asking things in his responses, and she's taking them as literal, and it ends up being kind of this like flustered, frustrated conversation where he wasn't able to find parking for his van because he had to take the train to, I don't know, whatever the next town over is, or the next like the big city. But there was only 2-hour parking, and so that wasn't good, and he didn't have money. She's like, well, I thought you had a bunch of money. And he's like, I didn't have coins. And she's like, well, blah, 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 blah. A whole thing back and forth. He gets a little flustered, frustrated with her, and she remembers a conversation that she had with one of her previous bosses with a customer that had gotten a little irate with her, and then she had continued to treat the woman nicely until the woman ended up having like a breakdown and admitting that she wasn't actually angry with the librarian. She was just really upset because it was like her son's like anniversary of passing away or something along those lines. And so her boss gave her the advice that angry is just a pen name for sad, Janet had explained. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, if you are kind to the angry person, you will calm them down and find out what is really going on with them. And so she takes this advice to heart, And so in response to Wally and being frustrated, she says, hey, I live 2 blocks from the train station and I don't have a car because I don't drive, but I have a parking spot for my flat. So like, if you ever need to use the train again, you could just park there. Really, anytime that you need a place to park overnight or park for extended, you can just park at my house. Like, that's okay. And he says, oh, like he's a little bit confused by this kindness. Anger, I guess, too, that he had expressed, like the other snippiness, it's relevant, I promise, during this was he was also frustrated because she kept calling him Wally. And he's like, that is not my name. And so when she offers him this parking space, she says, I do have one thing to ask in exchange, though. Oh, what? He watches me through narrowed eyes. His eyelashes are long and dark and curled like an old-fashioned doll's. I'd be most grateful if I could keep calling you Wally. To my surprise, Wally throws his head back and laughs, and even though I'm not sure why we're laughing, I laugh too. Aww. So then they go to the bowling alley. She arrives extra early. He offered to drive her, but she didn't want to because the idea of having to have small talk in a confined space gives her a headache, so the bus was the safer option. She's at the bowling alley waiting, and she brought headphones and then like swimming goggles that she has kind of like mostly blacked out with Sharpie to try to help with all of the noises and sounds and flashing lights and stuff that's going to be happening in said bowling alley. And so when he comes up, she has to take out her little earphone, whatever muffling thing to have a conversation with him. And he's just like super, super accepting of this and like is understanding what she's doing. The barest smiles of lips appears on Wally's lips. I see, as she explains what it is. I find they work better than sunglasses to block out the garish lights at these kinds of places. And then he goes on to say, listen, while your earplug is out, I wanted to say that I'm sorry for being rude the other day. I hadn't been to this sort of meeting in a while, and you were right. It wasn't about not being able to find parking. I shouldn't have gotten snappy with you. You were right. Those words remained lodged in my head. You were right. And not just about anything, about something in the muddy, confusing world of feelings. I can't wait to tell Rose. She asks if he's feeling better. He says, yes, I rescheduled it for tomorrow. And it's just really, again, cute. So they go in here. Everything's going pretty good. It's very, very obvious that her coworkers realized who he is or find him attractive or something. So they end up like flirting with him and putting their hands all on him. And he's being very, I wouldn't say dismissive of them, but also just very much not like engaging in this way with them. And instead, he's trying to figure out a way to communicate with Fern and continue communicating with her, even though she has these like earbuds in and the goggles, right? And so he's like mouthing words to her slowly and, offers to, get her a drink, goes and gets her shoes and puts them on for her. But unfortunately, on one of the times when he goes to get her a drink, her coworkers come over to her and ask her to remove an earbud to speak with her and to ask her about, how long have you been talking to Rocco is what they call him. But obviously, how long have you been talking to Wally, right? How long has this been going on? And where'd you meet him? And blah, 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 blah. And as they're all kind of freaking out, all these other noises are going on. And so she ends up getting overwhelmed and having like another panic attack. He comes back over, gets a hold of her, realizes he can't touch her because that is also like overwhelming. So he makes sure like gets her attention, and then he clears the crowd so she can follow him outside. And when they get out there, are you all right? Wally asks once we are away from the noise and the smells and the lights. My heart is still thundering. I thought I could do it, I say to Wally or myself. I thought I would be okay. Wally nods. One thing I've learned about facing fear, he says, is that sometimes it's just too scary. The next chapter is an entry from Rose's journal diary thing talking about the continued vacation with Owen and how she saw him interacting with a little girl with like a red raincoat and how cute it was and how she can't wait for him to be a dad. And then she goes on to continue thinking about Fern and how she shouldn't have left her alone. And we get a little bit more kind of like repetitive ideas, talking about this like perfectionism that she needed to have for her mom and this whole performance and everything that she had to do to make sure that her mom was happy and Fern was protected. And we get a couple more stories of their childhood, right? And like Rose's experience in childhood. Cut back to Wally driving Fern home after this bowling alley situation. And he opens up to her and he says, hey, I need to tell you something. And so he had developed an app called Shout, which is pretty much like Uber Eats. essentially, right? He's like, it was the first of its kind. It was this really big deal. But then it got way too big, way too fast. And we were doing so much more than just coding this app and working and doing all this, right? He's like, there was the schmoozing and the marketing and the going to these meetings and these shareholders and trying to sell it and like parties and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and I hated every second of it and I wasn't doing what I liked anymore. And he's like, I just went inside of myself and I couldn't do it all. Finally, when we sold the app, he's like, everybody else was celebrating so much and I ended up having like a mental breakdown. He's like, I completely lost my mind because it was all just like way too much and not what I wanted. And he's like, so when that happened, I left America and I came to Australia because he couldn't get much further away, right? He's like, I needed a fresh start. And then he goes on to ask her about like if it was him touching her that made her scream in the bowling alley. And she says it wasn't just the touch, it was like everything else as well. And he apologizes because he's like, I should have known better. Like, I don't like being touched either. I've learned to do it, to shake hands, to hug, to pat someone on the back because that's what people do, but I don't like it. But because you don't like it doesn't mean that I won't like it. True, he says, but you're a little bit like me. I open my mouth in surprise. Alike? I want to cry. What ways are we alike? But then it hits me. The way that Wally looks over my shoulder, his commitment to being punctual, his failing to attend his interview, and his frustration at himself afterwards. He doesn't like being touched. Wally is indeed a little bit like me. How had I not noticed this? The idea of this brings a flood of comfort and security, like I'm being seen and understood. I feel like a foreigner in a new country, after months of not being understood, has finally run into someone who speaks my language. And so then they begin to talk about what types of touches that they like and how lights are the worst. And then that turns into, well, what about sex, good or bad? Wally thinks about this for a minute. Good and bad, depending on many factors. I don't really know what the fuss is about. It seems like a bizarre thing to do if you think about it. How did people even discover it? It's a good question. I guess Adam and Eve must have got bored in the Garden of Eden from time to time. Maybe it was a dare, or maybe Eve tripped and fell and, I don't know, landed on Adam? Wally's cheeks are extraordinarily red, I notice. It makes me laugh a little, and after a second, Wally does too. It's magic. People rarely laugh at the same things that I do. Usually when I laugh, other people are silent, and when others laugh, I'm still trying to understand the joke. Before long, we are both laughing so hard that tears appear in the corner of my eyes and I have to wipe them away. Wally wipes away tears too. He steals a sideways glance at me, and we lock in a rare moment of direct eye contact. It's funny what happens then. It's as though there's a change in the atmosphere or something. I have to concentrate on taking a breath, which makes me aware of how loud I am breathing. And so then she just straight up asks, would you like to have sex with me? His eyes widen slightly. He's very clearly like taken aback, a little bit nervous. She's like pleased with this reaction of his. And so they come to a stop in front of her apartment, and he's still just like sitting there kind of like, you know, reflecting on this question of hers. And all of a sudden there's like a banging on the window, and it's her neighbor saying that she's been trying to get a hold of her all night and that apparently Rose had called a whole bunch. And again, she just gets this like shiver down her spine of like, Rose has been calling. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, what did I mess up now? And then the neighbor also goes on to say that there was like a man around her house again. Maybe it's the same guy from the library. That's kind of weird. So she's like, maybe I forgot to pay a bill or something. Their night ends on kind of this like sour note, because now instead of, you know, having sex or doing anything and continuing this good time and like bonding moment that they had, she has to go and see what the heck her sister wanted. She had left her phone at her house. I can't remember what her like logic was, but that's why she didn't have it on her. She had 17 missed calls from Rose. Apparently they had like a call scheduled for 7 p.m. and she didn't answer it. And so then her sister just called continuously. And all of this is like very frustrating to Fern, because she's like, why does it matter? She's like, it's not even that late. And you're over here thinking like the absolute worst. I didn't even do anything wrong. Then of course, Rose is like, so where were you anyway if you weren't here to answer my call? She says that she went bowling. Rose is like, you went bowling? Yeah, I did. Oh, Fern, did you get overwhelmed? A little. You must be tired. How did you get home? A friend drove me. Which friend? Wally? The longest pause yet. Is Wally a guy? There's something about Rose's tone that irritates me. Of course, she could never just be happy that I have a guy friend. I also feel irritated at myself. Why do I need her to be happy? That's the strangest thing about having a sister, in my opinion. The way you can be mad at them and want their approval all at once. So begins her explaining to Rose, who Wally is and how they met and how he lives in a van. And Rose is very upset by the idea of this friendship and concerned about him taking advantage of Fern. She gets a little flustered by this, but before she can respond, there's a knock on the door outside. And so she says, hey, I have to go, and hangs up on her sister. And when she opens the door, it's Wally, of course. And he says, I didn't answer your question. What question? Wally's cheeks turn crimson. Well, we were talking about Adam and Eve, and you said he drifts off. I wait. Wally rubs the bridge of his nose under his glasses. I said, Wally lets go of his nose and steps into my flat, grinning. Are you really going to make me say it? Say what? He shakes his head. You are funny. I'm not sure why I'm funny, but as he sweeps me into his arms and presses his lips to mine, it seems moot, as I couldn't have answered him anyway. He comes in to have sex with her, right? That's the question. She was asking if he would. He didn't say yes, but he comes in, they do. It's a pleasant surprise. She's like, this was actually pretty nice. The only other person I've ever done it with, I didn't really understand the hype, but this time around, I'm really, focusing on our pleasure. It's great. The issue happens where he asks, is it safe? And she says yes, because in her head, she's like, of course it's safe. We're in my house. We're not in any sort of danger right now. And we've deemed each other to not be dangerous people. Of course it's safe to do this. He's meaning more of is she on birth control, I would assume, or has she been tested, or you know what I mean? Things of that nature. Are we good to go without any condom, essentially? And she is just curious now about doing other things with him and more and trying new stuff, and she hasn't really experienced these types of feelings before, and she's pretty sure she got off, which is really cool. And so they're it's just a good time, right, between the two of them. I'm not really gonna go into it any more than this, but she really likes being around him, and also likes the fact that in the morning he leaves, which she's really happy about, because now she can just go back to her routine and he's not overstepping her boundaries or her comfort level with having had this engagement with him. That sounds so weird to say it like that, but you know what I'm saying. Next day, there's a little bit of back and forth drama yet again with the neighbor, and then she ends up having to take the dog to the library because Wally has that interview that we talked about before. Drama with that. She goes on to kind of push back of I can't have the dog here because he's my, disability dog. He's my assistant dog. And then the librarian boss lady, Carmel, asks for evidence of Fern's disability, but Fern doesn't have that because her mom never took her to get diagnosed. And so a whole bunch of back and forth doesn't really matter because Wally is done with his meeting now, so he's going to come and get Alfie. Great. Meeting went really, really well. It was a lot bigger than he expected. And he's like, hey, maybe we can go for a walk after you're done working and we can talk about it. It's really nice out. She says, I can't. On Thursdays after work, I visit my mother, and then I have dinner with Rose. Your mother? But I thought you said that she died. I said she overdosed. I never said that she died. Ooh, I thought that meant she died as well. But apparently not. Their mother is living in a nursing home after the overdose that she had. It really, really messed up her brain, and she hasn't really been able to communicate or function on her own in quite a while. But Mom's new speech pathologist has really been making some good headway. They've been doing some transcranial magnetic stimulation. Your mother's responding very well to it. And so the mom is able to look at a flashcard and say the word apple and lion. And I'm impressed because Mom's brain damage, speaking is hard for her now. Usually she pauses before each word as if gathering the strength, and then her mouth stretches wide around each syllable. Even with all the effort, her pronunciation is hollow sounding and requires extreme concentration to understand, but these words come out remarkably clear. Mom looks at me and calls me Popette. Mom started calling me Popette after the overdose. I think it's because sometimes she doesn't remember my name. Mom never used affectionate nicknames for us before, but a lot of things have changed about her. She smiles more now. She's easily delighted, reminding me of a much older lady or a younger child. She's actually a very good company most days. Her overdose happened 16 years ago. She took the pills in the evening, and Rose and I didn't even think about it when she didn't get up in the morning. She'd never been a morning person. Then they realized that she had overdosed on Valium and alcohol, and her brain had been irreparably damaged. A few weeks later, she had been moved to a permanent care facility, and Rose and I bounced around foster homes until we were 18. And Rose never visits their mom, like has never ever visited their mom. Only Fern ever does. In the early days after her accident, it had been a requirement that our various foster parents bring us here for weekly visitation, but the day Rose turned 18, she stopped coming, saying that mom unsettles me. That's so sad. So she still tells her, though, about Rose and how Rose is going to Europe to visit Owen and blah, 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 and gets her all kind of caught up on life, and then also says that I have some news. I met a boy, I say, and finally I get the gasp that I've been waiting for, which is also like so freaking cute. And when she gets back home, Wally's van is parked outside of her house. And they have like a really good conversation and dinner together. And he tells her all about how his meeting went and how he's working on developing another app. This time it's one that would like basically do admin work for you, kind of look at your emails and your calendar and give like auto responses to things, or like respond to people on your behalf about scheduling events and how like, oh, I'm busy on this day, but maybe next week. And, we'll have a great birthday. Sorry, I can't talk. I'm super busy with work and all these other things. Good response thing. And so she is amazed by this because she's like, that's an app I would be willing to pay for. Like, that's genius. I think it will have a market. And now that we have investors, I've got some work to do. And she's like, well, is this worthy of like celebration? He says yes. But the issue is like she celebrates by reading and he celebrates by playing Fortnite. So that's not really going to work. Instead, he says, actually, I was just wondering if I could kiss you. I giggle. Again, this time I can't even blame the orgasm. That night, as we make love, I don't think about getting pregnant at all. Not once. But she ends up having a nightmare that night about the whole drowning situation. And Wally is there to help comfort her, but still not great. They wake up the next morning and she wakes up late. She usually wakes up between 6:10 and 6:30, but now it's 7:07, and this throws off her entire morning routine. She's like frantically trying to get ready and telling Wally that he has to leave. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on? And as he's asking it, there is a knock at the door, and she's like, I don't know who that is. It's probably like my neighbor or something. But before she can really say anything else, Rose lets herself in and is like saying, hey, I'm here. I brought donuts. Rose has returned early from Europe. Oh, geez. So she tries to play it off with her sister in the kitchen, but Rose is like, I brought donuts. I figured we could catch up and talk and stuff. And so they sit down at the table, and the next thing she knows, like as she sits down, Wally comes out of the bathroom and says hello, gets introduced to each other. Rose stares at him. It's strange. Normally Rose is so poised, so polite. She always has the perfect response to everything, but today she seems like the sister who doesn't know how to behave. Gets ready, he ends up leaving, and then of course, the second that he does, Rose immediately berates Fern of like, you can't let strange men into your house. I can't believe you let him sleep here. Like, this is wildly inappropriate. After continuing to be, berated about all of this, visitor and all this other stuff and back and forth, Rose goes on to talk about her visit with Owen, and she's like, yeah, it went great. We're back together and blah, blah, blah. And Fern says, back together? I didn't realize you guys ever broke up. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, we're doing great. She's like, okay. So anyway, Owen has to finish a project in Europe, and then he's going to be moving back and everything will go back to normal. And then she's going to give Fern a drive to work and drops her off and stuff. And it's not until much later that she realizes Rose never said why she came home so early, like why she's so early back from Europe. And then in the following chapter, it gets revealed from Rose's perspective per her journal entry about why she returned early, which was Fern didn't pick up her phone, right? She called those 15 times and then she like answered, but then there was the knock on the door. So she didn't feel comfortable leaving her sister there because she's like, if there was any chance that she was in any type of danger, like I have to protect her. I have to be her protector, blah, blah, blah. So that's why she's home early. That's quite a long flight. That is quite a long flight from Europe to Australia to just show up for your sister like that. Okay. Then we get the beginning of talking about her being assaulted by one of her mother's boyfriends. I'm not going to say anything more than that, other than the fact that Her commenting about Fern being her protector stems from this situation because Fern had like kicked him in the balls, and so he left her alone. And then Rose thought that there was like safety in numbers, and so anytime that the sisters were together, he wouldn't bother her. And so Fern, that's how she was her protector, because it was like stuff only happened when Fern was like out of the room. Or so that's where all this is coming from. Just no more needs to be said other than that. Just traumatic. In our next chapter, this is chapter 19, we're back with her at the library, and there is a crisis, right? She's like helping reading to this little girl, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of yelling, and it is a man who's very clearly on drugs that has a knife who's threatening Carmel, the library boss lady, asking her where his money is. Fern intervenes and is like saying, "We don't have money. What can I help you with? Maybe let's just read instead." He tries to like take a swipe at her, she dodges it, and then she just goes ahead and picks up a book and starts reading it. And then this soothes him enough to sit down on a beanbag until the police arrive. I don't know, don't look at me like that. It works. And so then after they are getting checked out by like the medics, making sure that they're okay, Carmel is praising Fern and asking if she can like shadow her and see how she is at the library, right? Because she's such like a beloved person. And this is the first time that she's ever heard that before. Like Fern didn't realize that people actually really liked having her around, or this whole idea of people loving her. Like that's so unfathomable and really, really cool to her. Later on, she gets a phone call from Rose. Rose had Googled Wally's name, right? The whole Roscoe thing. Found out that he's a gazillionaire. That app that he sold, like $100 million had sold it off. And she's like, "This is so crazy. I can't believe it. Da 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 da. Like, that's so interesting of him." Fern doesn't care. She's like, that's literally the least interesting thing about him. Like, okay, yeah, I know. He told me about the app. Does not care at all, which I also think is just very, very cute. Cut to another date and hangout time with Wally and Fern. He pulls out a stack of papers and he asks her to sign them as his emergency contact because she is becoming his person. She is his person. Again, so incredibly sweet. But before she signs them, she's like, "Hey, there is something that you need to know before like you trust me in such a way. Like it's awful, unimaginably awful. I told you I can't be trusted, Wally. I'm dangerous." And so she goes on to explain to him about Billy drowning and how she had held him underwater because they were having a competition to hold their breath, and he wanted to do it for a long time, and she knew that like adults could drown in 60 seconds, and so she was helping him hold it for 40 seconds. She was holding him down for 40, and he should have been okay, but he wasn't. He ended up passing away, and it's her fault, right? And she's like lived with this crazy guilt about accidentally drowning him and thinking that she's like this super dangerous person. And so Wally, while, deeply disturbed by this traumatic thing, he says it was a terrible accident, but it was clearly an accident. You would never intentionally hurt anyone. You'd never hurt anyone, he repeats. And for some reason, maybe because it comes from Wally, I almost believe it. To my great surprise, Wally doesn't cut me out of his life. I wait for it to happen, either immediately or perhaps in a phasing out type of arrangement, but day after day, week after week, he shows up. At the library or my doorstep with suggestions of dinner or an evening walk. It's unfathomable. It's the kind of loyalty you might expect of a lifelong friend or family member. It doesn't make sense why Wally has elevated me to such a rank when we've only known each other for a few weeks, and yet he has. And so, over the next month or so, I amend my routine to create space for Wally. Oh my goodness, that's so cute to me. And then also over this time, she still has those dinners with Rose 3 nights a week, but more and more she's getting frustrated by them because Rose just completely bombards her with questions, and it feels more like an interrogation than it does anything else. One of the nights when Rose does cancel a dinner, she's super happy about it, feels a little guilty for feeling happy about it, but Wally takes her out on a date, and so she's cool with it, and they end up making love and just having this like great relationship on the side. And when she wakes up that next morning, he's still asleep and she's looking at the calendar and she's realizing that her period is 2 days late. In chapter 23, Rose asks Fern to go to an IKEA store with her, which even for a neurotypical person is a freaking sensory nightmare of a place. The way that Rose keeps asking her to take her headphones off so that she can ask like a question that doesn't even matter, right? Fern is just thinking to herself, like, I swear to God, it almost seems like my sister's doing this to me on purpose. And she inevitably starts to begin to have a meltdown and ends up puking on her sister's shoes. They go off to the bathroom to try to like calm down and find some comfort. And she ends up telling Rose that she is now a week late, like for her period, right? More time has passed since the last chapter. Immediately, Rose asks Fern if she plans on keeping the baby, and there's hesitation. And so now Rose is like trying to convince her to not keep said child. Rose's immediate thing is, okay, well, we both know that you've had your difficulties in the past, and what if something happened to you when you were with the baby? Babies are vulnerable, Fern. Bad things can happen even by accident. The only possible way that this could work is if you had a stable, level-headed partner, and Rocco isn't that, is he? She says, think about it, Fern. Rocco couldn't cope with some basic business pressures. He found it so stressful that he had to leave his country, abandon his whole life, and start a rudderless existence living out of his van. What would happen if he were presented with real difficulty, like disease or death or a baby that just wouldn't stop crying? I open my mouth to answer the question, and then I realize I have no idea. She's right. I couldn't be trusted with a baby. Neither could Wally. How foolish to even consider it. And so Rose goes to give her a hug, you know, as like a sense of comfort after this revelation and everything. And all Fern can think about is how this feels like a straitjacket. In Rose's diary entry, right, we get one of those on here. And she's making a comment about how this is like a cosmic joke. How if she were the one that was pregnant, this would be, you know, a reason for celebration. But because it's Fern who's pregnant, there's all of these extra steps and, you know, oh my gosh, everything, we always just get thrown all of these curveballs. She goes on to continue the childhood recollections that we've gotten, and she talks about how her mom broke up with that one creepy boyfriend that we mentioned before. Then she starts introducing them to yet another boyfriend, and this time, this one seemed pretty nice, right? This is Danny, who is Billy, the boy who drowned. This is that guy's, or that boy's father. And she's just noting about how he was like a real dad, the ones that you saw on the television, and how on the day that they had gotten introduced, their mom was very clearly acting different and playing a role and trying to like put on a show for this guy. And it just drove Rose mad. Like she knew that this was going to be bad. Back to Fern. Monday, she's so happy to be back at the library after such this like chaotic weekend and this whole like IKEA trip and everything else that happened. And now it's time for Carmel to follow her around and be her shadow, right? Like she had talked about before after that crazy guy had tried to attack them at the library and whatnot. And she's so impressed, right? Follows her around the whole day. And at the very end of it, she's like, oh my God, Fern, I didn't realize all that you did for the library. Like you are truly like a gift to this place, right? The way that you interact with people, the way that you engage and give recommendations and fix problems and X, Y, and Z. Like you are like the backbone here. You are a gift to this place. And this is, again, like a concept or a saying that she doesn't really understand, or like she thinks it's a silly phrase. And so she just like, okay, I don't really know what she means, but I'm just going to press on because today was a pretty good day. She still has not told Wally about the pregnancy. We're like a couple weeks into it by this point. And she walks home from the library. Wally's out front outside of her house, right? Because he's started parking in that parking spot. And so even though they don't see each other every day, like hang out, they at least wave to each other, or they'll like briefly say hello, and she'll sit next to him outside for a little bit and then she'll go inside. And he doesn't like intrude into her space in any way. He's just outside. This day though, pulls out a chair, sits next to him, and they talk, and a little bit of back and forth. And eventually she asks him outright, like, do you want children? Which maybe would seem kind of out of the blue, but she asks a lot of blunt questions, and she has over the last couple of weeks of them trying to get to know each other and everything. So this doesn't really surprise him. So he gives an answer to this, to him, hypothetical question, and he says no. He's like, I don't want kids. The world's falling apart. It's on fire. they're going to be running out of fresh water by 2048 and blah, blah, blah. Like, everything's going to shit. I don't want a kid. I don't want to bring a kid into this world. He's like, and plus, like, I have like a mental illness and I don't want to pass that on to a child. So she cuts the conversation short after that. She just says, okay, thank you for your answer. Goes inside, and she's really proud of herself that she makes it inside and is able to close the door before she starts crying. Because she realizes, like, she's not going to be able to tell him about this kid. And so she decides to consider terminating the pregnancy, says as much to Rose. And so Rose texts her the following day saying, like, hey, I scheduled you an appointment at the family planning clinic. I still haven't told Rose that she is the reason that this baby exists, despite plenty of opportunities. It's not that I think I can keep the baby myself. I understand now that I wouldn't be what's best for the baby. But as for deciding to hand him or her to Rose, that might take a little more time. After hours of discussing my options over the weekend, Rose and I decided it would be prudent to visit a family planning clinic. So Rose is supposed to pick her up and drive her to said clinic. But all of a sudden, she cancels last second that morning. She says something came up, and so Fern has to take the bus. There's a whole thing on there that makes her freak out. She gets off the bus a couple stops early and has to walk in the rain. And then she was hoping that Rose would be there with her or would beat her there so that Rose could help her with the paperwork, because this is something that she doesn't like doing. So she just sits in the corner, doesn't go up to check in or anything, just sits in the corner of the clinic waiting. Eventually, like 5 minutes after the appointment start time, Rose busts in through the door, very dramatic, very loud, very much causing a scene. And she's like, oh my God, Fern, I need to talk to you. I had this thought this morning, but it's crazy. It's crazy, okay? But I need to talk to you first. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Like, let's get out of here. So then they leave the clinic and they go across the street to go to a cafe to have a conversation where, of course, Rose says, I had this epiphany last night that if I can't have a kid and you're about to have one and you aren't suitable parents, but Owen and I, right, my husband and I, we're a happy family, like we could raise the kid. There's something about the way that she says this that is just kind of concerning to Fern, mostly because she realizes that Owen knows. Rose looks guilty. I hope you don't mind, but when I suggested that he and I might raise the baby, he was over the moon. I shouldn't have done that without speaking to you first. I sit back in my chair. I like Owen a lot. The idea that the baby could be raised by two loving parents, two neurotypical, loving parents, it's the start to a life that every child deserves. And so she agrees to this. And yet again, when Rose goes to hug her at the end of this encounter, this time she just feels like she is choking. Anytime she has these like interactions with her sister and this like, quote unquote, like loving embrace, it always just feels so suffocating. We have another journal entry from Rose talking about how great it was with Danny and Billy and how they're about to go on this trip out camping and how excited she is and they feel like a real family, and Danny and his ex-wife actually get along and they went to her house, the ex-wife's house, to pick up the kid, and how like cordial everybody is. And on the car ride there, they're singing songs and having a good time and BSing, and it feels like a real family. And it's, again, another one of those things. Her entries get pretty repetitive at this point. I think I've said that already, so apologies there as well. But she's saying how much this feels like a family and how happy she is. And she's just like constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, that like inevitably her mom is going to ruin this relationship or ruin this like happiness that everybody is feeling. Back in Fern's perspective, ever since she told Rose that she would have the baby and like be this like surrogate mother for her, she has been even more invasive, like dropping by randomly, calling randomly, just coming, like showing up to her work, consistently asking how she's doing, and then also consistently finding things that she's doing wrong, right? Like Fern is annoyed by all of this, but then she's also acknowledging like, yeah, but she's really helpful because like I didn't realize I couldn't eat deli meat, and apparently I had like an incense burner on, and that's bad fumes for me to breathe in while I'm pregnant. And yeah, she's really annoying, but she's doing her best, and I know she has my best interest at heart. Cut to, it's another Thursday, which means it's time for, is it Thursdays that she goes? I think it's Thursdays. It's time for her to go and visit her mom. And so they have their little chit chat, giving them updates on everything. Mom is doing great. She's moved up to speaking in even better phrases. And they're really excited that, maybe next week she'll even be speaking in full sentences. She's doing awesome. And Fern says, Mom, you remember that guy that I had mentioned before? I am pregnant. And I know, don't worry. I know, she gives this like gasp. Another one, she's like, I know that I'm not fit to be a mom, so I'm going to give the baby to Rose. This makes the mom so worked up. She's like gasping for air. She's crying. She like cannot like make any more words. Something is going crazy with mom, and she's like unable to like form anything for a couple of minutes. Eventually, she's able to say, your baby, don't give it to Rose. And then continues to have enough of like a medical episode from the stress of this announcement that the nurses have to come in, and Fern leaves. And she's like, I wish mom could have said more. I would have loved to know why mom would have said that. That's very, very alarming. Editing Kaylee here. I don't know what the transition is. I don't care to look. I already returned the book. Just know that Wally comes over to Fern's flat and invites her on a date because the app that he was creating with his buddy is doing really, really well. And so he like invites her to go celebrate. So they're going to go to this restaurant this night. It's a whole thing. It seems really weird because I know there's already like relationship drama, but yes, they're about to go on this date. You'll understand in a minute. Okay, love you, bye. He asks her to go to dinner at a restaurant. She is taken aback by this, and also because she's supposed to have dinner with Rose this night, but she cancels on Rose. Rose is very offended, which we all kind of expected, and she ends up kind of ignoring Fern, but Fern doesn't care because she wants to go on this date with him. Because it's not just any restaurant. Turns out he knows the guy, and there's a party that has the whatever room reserved, and so there's a whole floor of it that's going to be empty, so it'll just be the two of them here, which is so romantic, right? And then he also bought her a dress that is like covered in this like diagonal rainbow pattern. She wears like very colorful clothes all the time, and so it's a very thoughtful gift that she absolutely loves. And there's one more thing. He leans over and opens the glove compartment. These are noise canceling and Bluetooth connected so we can hear each other. He says, handing me a pair of giant headphones that look like earmuffs. In these, he hands me a pair of swimming goggles in pink and purple and aqua and pulls out another pair of bright green goggles for himself. I think are fairly self-explanatory. He pulls the green ones over his face. What do you think? You look like an aviator frog, I say. I pull on my own goggles. What about me? A rainbow aviator frog. And I smile. Right, incredibly cute. They go to this dinner. It's going really, really well, right? They're having some great conversation. Everything's good until she takes like the headphones off a little bit so that they could have a more intimate conversation, I believe, or it was to order the food or something. She had to take it off for some reason. And all of a sudden, there's this crazy booming noise because it turns out that the party that's reserved on the other floor is above them, and it's a Greek wedding. And so all of a sudden, everybody's all smashing plates. And so it's just this crazy booming, echoing noise in here, and she completely loses her mind and like dives under the table and is like inconsolable, right? So she ends up defaulting back and like begging Wally to call Rose, right? This is like her default person. Rose shows up to pick up Fern at this restaurant, and she is pissed. She's like, I can't believe that you would even try to do this. I can't believe that you would think that you could do XYZ. And Wally just keeps continuing to apologize, right? He's like, I'm so sorry. I thought that I had thought of everything. I thought that I planned for everything. And then Rose goes in to pay the check because apparently Wally had not. He had forgotten to and been a little distracted doing other things. You know, I don't know, maybe being distracted by the fact that his girlfriend is having a meltdown, right? So Rose, of course, she's like, I'll take care of it, and goes running inside. He looks at me. I'm sorry, Fern. No, I'm sorry. He shakes his head. I had no idea it would be so difficult. Yeah, difficult. There's a brief silence when no cars drive past. Why can't I just be normal? You are. It's everyone else who are weirdos. We smile at each other sadly. After a moment, Rose comes out of the restaurant. Say your goodbyes, she says, taking me by the arm and putting me into the passenger seat of her car. It feels so different from Wally opening the door for me earlier. Then I felt like a woman. Now I feel like a child. As we pull away, Wally gives me a weak smile. I can't help but smile back. He's still wearing his goggles. And this just like breaks my heart. Like he tried so hard to do everything that he could to make this as, you know what I mean, comfortable and like accommodating as possible. That just freaking blows, dude. Journal time. They're at the campsite, hanging out. I don't know. Everything's going great. We're just really dragging out this whole thing of just, it's a great happy family, and Rose is living her best life at this point in her childhood. Like, this is a very brief happy time for them that she thought this was going to be the moment that would change everything. But in current day, Rose, after picking up Fern, instead of driving her back to her flat, she takes Fern to her flat. That sounds really, really confusing. Like, Fern, I don't have time for this. I had back-to-back meetings today and was on my way home when I got the call that you had a spectacular meltdown and I have to come and rescue you. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to do it, but I'm tired and the least you can do is come inside. Like, they are at Rose's house and she's refusing to drive Fern to Fern's flat. So she's like, just stay here. Fern doesn't want to because she doesn't sleep well at other people's houses. If you're too tired to drive me, I say, getting out, I'll just walk home. Fern Elizabeth Castle. Her tone is sharp like a school teacher's. You're staying here and that's final. It's not final. I'm an adult, Rose. I can choose where I sleep. Her eyebrows raise. If you're an adult, why do I need to be your round-the-clock carer? Rose and I face off for several moments. That's when I notice what she's wearing. If you were on your way home from work, why are you wearing leggings? Really, Fern? Rose stares at me. After I've driven across town to rescue you, you want to talk about what I'm wearing? I want to tell her, yes, I do. I want to talk about that. But I can't because Rose turns and stalks into the house before I have the chance. I remain where I am for several moments, huffing and sighing before finally following her into the house. Goes in there, gets a crappy amount of sleep, wakes up the following morning, trying to wake up early enough to go home and get back on her routine. Rose is already awake, making her tea. They sit down for a cup of tea, and Fern is facing the window to the backyard. And she sees that there's like a building going up, like a shed thing. And she's like, oh, what's this? Rose looks a little bit embarrassed, but she says, yeah, I'm like building, it's a granny flat. It could be your own little place at my place. I was going to surprise you with it, but now you're here. And yeah, I thought you could live here after the baby was born so you could be in the baby's life. Okay, she pushes back, understandably. Fern is like, hey, also, I mean, this thing, where's this says, it looks like a children's playhouse, an oversized dollhouse, not a place for an adult to live. She's like, I like my independence. Like, I'm going to keep my flat. Oh, so you don't want to be in the baby's life? You don't want to see him every single day? Yes. Well, while you're pregnant, I want to see you every single day. You get that, right? I want you to be here in case you need anything. And then she smiles all soothingly and asks to get her ice cream. Oh my God. Fern continues to push back, however, right? She's like, I want my independence. I need to be in my own place, need to be doing my own thing. Like, I don't want to move in with you. I don't want to do this. And Rose is like, is this because of Wally? Is this because of your boyfriend? And she's like, no, but I mean, partially. So Rose says, I know you like him, Fern, but there is no happy ending to this. You know that, right? You saw how it went last night. Rocco's doing well right now, getting himself started in a new business, traveling. The last thing he needs is to get himself into a complicated relationship. Fern, you're going to be showing soon. What will you tell him then? I really think it's better for everyone if you end it with him sooner rather than later. Oh, no. So it's a bit of a stare down, some more convincing, and then eventually she says, all right, fine, I'll move in with you. Rose nods, but looks at me expectantly. And I'll break up with Wally. She doesn't want Wally to know that he's the father, because if he knows, then he would want to have like a say in terminating the pregnancy. So that was like the whole original thing, where Rose was like, if you're getting rid of the baby anyway, don't tell him, because then he would have a say in it and there's like no point to even bring it up. And then it was like, well, if you're going to give him to me or let me have the baby, he doesn't need to get involved, because then he would have to agree to the adoption. And so instead, we'll just leave that blank and just say you don't know who the dad is. We're just not going to talk to Wally at all. So yeah, you need to break up with him and get him out of the picture. Dude, oh my God. oh my God. You know what I'm saying? Like, just, oh my God is all I can say. At this point, we are a little over halfway through the book too, right? Like I said, I'm trying to pick this up a little bit. This video is taking a lot longer than I thought, but I want to read so much more to you because it's actually like interesting and good. Back to this camping trip. It is very clear as the entry continues that Rose is developing a crush on the boy, on Billy, right? Also apparent that Fern has a crush on Billy as well, right? And so goes on to talk about this a little bit more and how Fern and Billy are trying to hold their breath underwater and see who can do it longer. And the mom is watching and makes a comment to the dad about like, oh, look at that. Like I think they have like a little crush. I think it's mutual. I'm pretty sure that he likes Fern. And she says that while staring directly at Rose. And so Rose is writing this and she's like, she knows that I like him and she's doing this to like, you know what I mean? Hate me or get back at me or be like manipulative, crappy mom, which is interesting and kind of weird. And I know it sounds like incesty. I feel like we can't have a single book without that, but at least so far we don't have any cheating. So that's good, guys. I'm finally getting a thriller that doesn't have that. I was hoping to God when I had sister in the title that wouldn't be the case, and I'm happy so far. I finished the book at this point, so there is none. Thank God. Thank God. So a week has passed in current day, and Fern finally invites Wally over to break up with him. He's like, is this because of what happened last week at the restaurant? She says no. And then he says, is this because of your sister? I tell him it's not, but his jaw tightens anyway. Can I say something? He says, I know you love your sister, but something isn't right about her. It's like she doesn't know where she ends and you begin. It's like she thinks you belong to her or something. And you don't have great boundaries with her either. You blindly believe the things that she tells you. You don't question anything that she says. Was it Rose's idea that we break up? He asks. I cross my arms. Wally raises his eyebrows. Why isn't that a surprise? He says. Fern, if you can't tell me one reason you want to break up, then I'll... And so she says, I met somebody else a couple weeks ago and you've been too busy with work. And she's thinking about how Rose told her that it has to sting, but it has to be kindness in disguise. And so she's like, I don't know, says some other bullshit, right? Her sister coached her through how to break up with him, though, which is exactly what he's trying to call her out on right now. But he listens to her. He's like, okay, fine. You say you found somebody else. You're happy. Got it. He's very, very clearly heartbroken, like very sad about this, but he's being respectful. And so he goes to leave and he just says, can you do something for me? Just remember what I said about your sister. Oh my gosh. Time passes. Weeks are going by. She is miserable. She misses him so much. And she's thinking about how she's never missed anybody this bad other than her mom after the overdose. And she missed her mom so bad that she was like wailing. But I'd learned somewhere along the way that you were supposed to miss people silently. Missing people aloud upset people. It made them feel like they weren't enough, that you didn't care about them. Rose in particular felt like this. You only care about mom. I'm the one who's looked after you all your damn life. I don't want anyone to feel like I don't care about them. So I grieve silently, invisibly. It's worked for me so far. But there's another loss coming my way very soon, my baby. And that one, I fear, might be the one that topples me. Again, I think they're at the 12-week mark. And so they go in there to go and get like the sonogram and like figure out a bunch of stuff. And it's, I don't know, one of the mile marker parts. I didn't write down the exact time frame. But they go in there and Rose is at the appointment with her, obviously, and introduces herself as the mother and Fern as the surrogate. And is like immediately making these distinctions. Didn't even talk to her about it. Like, yeah, I mean, they agreed to that, but to be going to these appointments and introducing it in such a way, it feels very jarring and uncomfortable. And Fern is just feeling more and more disconnected and like not comfortable with what's going on. You know what I mean? Like in theory it was okay, but in practice she's kind of regretting what's going on. And in the back of her head, just everything that like her mom said and everything that Wally said, she's just starting to get some doubts. But also she's thinking about how like Owen, right, Rose's husband, like he's gonna be such a great dad because he had sent like a little, I don't know, a little toy the week before, a little Paddington Bear thing from London, you know, where he's out working and stuff. And Rose had asked for an extra copy of the sonogram pictures to send to the dad, i.e. to Owen. Fern is sad that she can't tell Wally and share this experience with him, but she understands. And then she's like, but it's okay, because like Owen, he'll be a good dad. Like the baby will be lucky My baby, Rose's baby, would be lucky to have him. Still, as I watch the picture of the baby on the screen as the surrogate, I feel an ache in my chest that makes me finally understand the feeling that people call a broken heart. Oh no. When I'm 4 months pregnant, Rose says she wants to talk to me about something important. Something important being this whole adoption process. And this is continuing the conversation of like, hey, not only do we need to not tell Wally that the baby exists, but we can't put him on the birth certificate either for the reasons that I said earlier. I think I just got it out of order in my brain. But this is where they formally say it. Just more and more panicky feelings about like the finality of all of this. As the pregnancy goes along, we're getting into summertime. This is more and more overwhelming for Fern, especially with like the overbearingness of Rose and like getting involved in every aspect of her life more and more, literally with like every single passing second, to the point that Rose is dropping by her work even more frequently. So eventually, she starts reading books about boundaries. Again, remembering what Wally had told her about not having any boundaries with her sister. She read a bunch of books about it. She's practiced. And so one of the days when Rose drops by, she's thinking, be polite but firm. Explain why, but do not over-explain. Stay calm and on message. I decide it might be a good moment to employ these strategies. Thank you for the visit, Rose, I say, which I think meets the polite tip. But I need to work. Firm, without over-explaining. Rose frowns, but I've come all this way to see you. I thought you said you were in the area. But in any case, perhaps calling ahead next time would be a good idea. Rose blinks. You want me to go? Her face is blank, but now there's a challenge in her voice, maybe even a dare. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Yes, I say. I stand and turn from her, but not before I see her jaw drop. As I walk into the staff room, I force myself not to look back. Setting boundaries isn't easy. I walk straight to my desk and Google Great Boundaries again. Seems like I'm going to need a little more help with this. But she did it. She was trying so hard. And then she's reflecting that like Rose is going to ignore her because like when they were little, Rose was a pro at that any time that she got mad, she would give people the silent treatment for like sometimes several freaking days of steely silence. And it goes on. This is a really popular quote. A bunch of people had highlighted it. Sisterly relationships are so strange in this way. The way that I can be mad at her but want to please her, be terrified of her and also want to run to her, hate her and love her both at the same time. Maybe when it comes to sisters, boundaries are always a little blurry. Blurred boundaries, I think, are what sisters do best. In the journal entry about this camping trip, Fern is taking a nap and Rose and Billy decide to go down to the river and they're going to go and skip some rocks, and she's excited, and eventually Billy leans over and kisses her, but all of a sudden they hear this rustling and they turn around and Fern is there. Fern looked at us. There was something about her expression. Fern always saw more than people thought. I had a feeling she knew exactly what we were doing. She didn't look happy about it. Let's go back to camp, I said. Fern waited until Billy disappeared up the track and then fell into step beside me. I waited for her to inundate me with questions, but she didn't. Back at camp, Fern went straight to bed without a word, and I lay awake, thinking about Billy. It wasn't until later that I thought about the way Fern had looked Billy down at the lake, like she was angry, like she hated him. It actually looked like she wanted to kill him. In chapter 39... Fern's perspective, she is 18 weeks along, and Carmel, her boss at the library, is being very kind and has like not asked her outright about her pregnancy, but has very much been giving her tasks where she can sit down for extended periods of time and is trying to get her to teach a class where she can sit down for extended periods of time, and is like trying to be as accommodating as she can and like, you know what I'm saying? Like helping her out without saying anything or like addressing the elephant in the room. And I think there's also a point where the coworkers begin to realize that she's pregnant and ask her, and they're like, oh my God, why didn't you tell us? Like they're so excited for her, genuinely. Like these people all really are such friends of hers, even though maybe Fern doesn't see it or feel it that way. Like there's very much the way that they react to her. And even at the bowling alley, it didn't feel like it was like a gossipy thing or like a Mean Girls conversation. It felt like it was like a genuine girls moment. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a very much girl powery, backing up your friend type of thing, whether she felt it or not that way. The way that the women talked, it read that way to me. I hope that makes sense. Also, during this chapter, another Thursday rolls around, so she goes to visit her mom. Her mom has been going downhill ever since their last visit. And now the nurse is saying, hey, your mom is doing something that we call confabulation, which is where she kind of makes up some words and some stories and some things sometimes. So she's been saying a lot of really, really crazy stuff. I just want to give you a heads up. So don't be alarmed. Best course of action is just to agree to what she says and believe it, and then she'll get over it in a couple of minutes and forget what happened. So just kind of go along with it. She's like, okay, well, like what's mom saying? Well, I mean, she keeps talking about this boy named Billy and how, like, he drowned or was drowned, and maybe he wasn't drowned, but he was murdered. I don't know. It's a bunch of stuff. And she's talking about, like, how your sister isn't good or isn't the good sister. It's odd, so just don't be alarmed by it, but blah, blah, blah. So it goes in there. She's like, oh my God. Maybe this isn't confabulation. Like, maybe mom is just saying the truth now, right? So Fern is starting to question things. So after this visit, she goes home to Rose and says as much. She says, hey, visited mom today, and this is what the nurse said is happening, and this is what mom said. And Rose goes, like, deathly still when she's in the middle of, like, cooking dinner. And she says, of all of the things that mom could talk about with her newfound speech, she really does have a gift for ruining our lives. Rose bends over and picks up the bracelet. I hesitate. Rose? Was she really a bad mom? Rose looks at me. You know she was. When I don't respond, she looks aghast. Agree to disagree then. I know you want to have a relationship with her, Fern, but trust me, she's not a good person. There are things you don't understand. Rose waits for a response from me, so after a few seconds, I nod. After all, there must be things I don't understand, because as I look back over my memories of mom, at least 90% of them are good. Oh my goodness gracious. In the next journal entry, there is a lot of tension at the campsite. All of the kids have some weird tension just between themselves, the anger, the whatever. I don't know what you want me to say. That night, they go to the stream, though, because the parents asked for some privacy, so all the kids are back down at the stream. Rose is watching. She's sitting next to Fern on the bank and watching as Billy is just taking a swim, and then eventually she has to pee, and that's where we opened up at. That was the first entry in the journal, where she goes pee in the woods and then eventually returns, and then Fern is in the river next to Billy's floating body. Very clearly dead, and she like details about how she like rushed over and pulled him out and was doing CPR and all this other stuff, and Fern just sat there not acknowledging anything, and how she protected her sister and how they were going to go along with the story that it was an accident and he was trying to hold his breath and was in the holding breath competition with her, and he must have gotten tangled up in the reeds and passed away, and it was like an accidental drowning, and how Fern went along with it to like a perfect T. Like that was the story that she told to the cops, and everybody just moved on. Precious Fern could never do anything wrong. In current day, with this whole pregnancy situation going, same things I've said. Her coworkers are super supportive. At home, Rose is equal parts annoying as she is pampering to Fern. It's very like conflicting feelings that she's having. And then there's this really sad part where she says every now and then after Rose goes to bed, I hop on the iPad and search Wally's name, his actual name, obviously. I usually only ever get hits for old articles about the Shout app, but one day when I'm about 7 months along, a new article pops up of him along with a photo. It's something about the new app that he was working on, like when they were talking before, and how great that it was going. And I don't know, blah, 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 something about selling it, whole thing. She doesn't know because she can't even open the article because I'm too taken by the photograph. I touch the screen, half expecting to feel the stubbly skin of his cheek under my hand. Then, after checking that Rose is nowhere to be seen, I lean forward and kiss the screen right where his lips are. Which is, like, again, so sad of how much that she, like, very clearly loves this guy, and she's only not talking to him based off of her sister's guidance, and so that she can do right by her sister. And it's really reminding me of that one book, My Sister, the Serial Killer. That was really interesting, too. Very, I feel like, similar vibes. Anyway, so speaking of the dads, Owen, right, Rose's husband, is delayed. His return is delayed, then delayed again. And in the meantime, they're taking on like the Owen tasks, like building the crib and painting the nursery and all of this stuff. And she takes this opportunity to be busy, to keep my mind busy off the baby, Billy, mom, Wally, all of the things I lost or am losing. And it's just freaking sad, dude. But speaking of the library, things are going great there, right? She's like learning and developing even better people skills, and with her new coworkers that she has. And like, there's a point where she had like a whole conversation about garden swings, her new herb garden, as well as Kelly Rimmer's other books. And none of it felt like a chore in the least. The fact we're focused on our work as we talk assists with this, I believe. We're still chatting comfortably when the automatic doors open. And it is Rose coming to visit her yet again. She hasn't done this since Fern set the boundary, so this is kind of weird, and she's acting pretty frantic, and she asks, Fern to step outside with her and tells her, I just had a call from Sun Meadows, which is the nursing home where their mom is. And this is weird. Why would they call Rose? And she asks this. She's like, why would they call you? Rose looks a little sheepish. I'm mom's emergency contact. I stare at her. I have been visiting her every week for 16 years, and Rose is her emergency contact, which again makes me so sad talking about this whole being somebody's person thing, and then Wally asking her to be the emergency contact. And like, I don't know, it's kind of like a through line of like relationship and relationship dynamics that finding that part out really freaking hurt my heart so bad for Fern. But yeah, mom is dead. And so Fern is obviously taken aback by this. And she's like, well, I want to go and see her. They've already taken her for the autopsy. I stare at her. Already? Yes. But when did she die? The hospital called me yesterday. Apparently she didn't wake up in the morning. Yesterday? Mom's been dead for a whole day and you didn't tell me? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Which is also a lie, right? Because she came in there and said that they had just called her. So that's not true either, if you're saying that they called you last night or called you yesterday. So she's just like, she can't even get her story straight in this like immediate moment with Fern. And she's picking up that there's something not adding up here, right? So she tells Rose to go away. She does. And then Fern goes to that secret little cupboard room and calls the nursing home or like the whatever care facility thing where the mom was, and asks to speak to somebody. And she ends up talking to one of the nurses who was like a longtime nurse of the mom's, and she's apologizing, she's like, I'm so sorry for you. Like, your mom was a pleasure to work with. She was always so kind, but it may be some comfort that I saw your mother the evening before she died. She seemed happy to see her sister at last. I think it really lifted her spirits. And Fern is thinking, I can't believe it. Rose visited Mom. She visited her. I let my hand fall back against the armchair. Any anger that I'd felt toward Rose dissipates. What that must have meant to her. To see her other daughter right before she passed away. Must have been so happy. So she ends the phone call with the nursing home, and she's no longer mad at her sister. Okay. She gets pulled out of the secret cupboard room because Carmel knocks on it and says, hey, somebody's here to visit you. And it's Wally. Again, she hasn't seen Wally in like 7 months, right? So she comes out of here freaking about to burst. And he's not even surprised that she's pregnant. And he's like, oh, yeah. Like, so it's true. You are pregnant. She's like, how did you know? Rose told me. What? Rose told you I was pregnant? He nods. But when did you see her? Wally's face gets a funny look to it. And then Wally's face gets a funny look to it then, like he's sucking the inside of his cheeks. I'm not sure if he's confused or upset or even angry. Rose visited me quite a few times over these last few months, Fern. Now I'm certain I've misheard. She phoned me several months ago. She wanted to see me to talk about you, she said. She came to my office. Oh my God. Oh my God. She's like, this doesn't make any sense. Rose spent these last few months telling me to not contact him. Why would she go and see him herself? First she wanted to have coffee, then she suggested lunch. Each time I agreed because I wanted to know how you were doing, but she never told me much about you other than that you were happy with your new boyfriend. And then she told me yesterday that you were pregnant, and she told me that you were in financial trouble. And she's like, I'm not in financial trouble. Yeah, your sister told me that you would say that. I'm just confused. I don't know why Rose would come to you. She came to me because she knows I care about you, and she knows that I would give you money in a heartbeat if you needed it. And she used that information to get money for herself, Fern, not for you. I shake my head. No, that can't be right. Look, Fern, I know you've met someone else, but Rose is right. I do still care about you. And as someone who cares about you, I feel a responsibility to tell you I think something is very wrong with your sister. Very, very wrong. Oh no. And so she doesn't even like register the fact that he is still thinking that she has a boyfriend, right? Doesn't even clock that part of the information that he drops on her because she's so distracted by, I don't know, the rest of the absolute bullshit that she's been fed. So he just kind of leaves, right? He said his part. He said his like, hey, your sister's, I don't know, figure it out, but there's something not right here. And he goes on about his merry business. And so she's like, okay, maybe there is something actually wrong with my sister. This isn't good. So she calls back to the nursing home, talks to the nurse again, and ends up saying that like Rose hadn't seen mom in a long time. It was her first visit in 10 years. I say suddenly. I'm not sure why. Perhaps I want assurance that this, combined with mom's unexpected death, doesn't mean anything. The nurse is quiet for a long time, but I can hear her breathing, so I know she's still there. Fern, as far as I know, this death isn't being treated as suspicious. Is there a reason you think it should be? I repeat the question in my head. Fern? She says again. I want to respond as she asked a question. It's just that I don't know how to answer. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then, freaking dude, there's no way this is all happening in the same day, but I'm pretty sure this is. She suddenly starts to experience contractions, and she's had the Braxton Hicks ones happening this whole time, but this is like extra bad. And so she asks for Carmel to get her a taxi, and she goes to the hospital, and she does not tell anybody, does not call anybody, doesn't say anything until she is like actively going into labor. And one of the nurses is like, hey, like labor can be really, really hard. Like you'll want somebody here for you. Like you'll want some support, a friendly face, someone you can trust. Someone I can trust. How complicated that statement has become. What if the person I trust most in the world is entirely untrustworthy? I want to ask. And then another thought occurs to me. And what if she's the one person I can't get through this thing without? And so she tells the nurse, fine, there's someone that you can call. And Rose arrives 15 minutes later. Oh my God. Oh my God. So we get this like really detailed birth story and how overwhelming all of this experience was. But Rose did a really good job at like dimming the lights and telling the doctors to back up as much as they could and like helping her walk around and like blah, blah, blah. And that's the funny thing. Whatever else Rose has done, I realize she is the only person on earth who can do this for me, which is to like comfort her in this like crazy, crazy moment. And then as she's like actively pushing and giving birth, obviously the doctors are like all up in her grill and they're unable to move. And so Rose instead is like looking at her and she's like trying to comfort her. And she says, hey, close your eyes. Imagine you are somewhere safe, the library. You have the space you need and you are with someone that you trust. I do as she says, and it's Wally's face that I picture as I give birth to our daughter. Oh no. Oh no, is all I can say. Just, oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Then there's a journal entry. I guess this is the part where Rose is recounting giving CPR to the kid and then not coming back to life and then deciding that they're going to lie and say the whole he got tangled up in the weeds thing, okay? So my bad. I told you that a little bit early. Doesn't affect anything, but just if you're reading along, just know I goofed up on the timeline there. Sorry. Okay, back to the baby. Baby's born, baby's healthy. Fern is healthy as well, but on one of the times, Rose had gone away for a bit or overnight or something, came back in, found out that Fern had breastfed the baby, and she freaks out. Rose like yells at one of the nurses, gets like a wicked attitude of like, the problem is I'm the baby's mother and I didn't want the surrogate breastfeeding. Again, the way she's just now referring to her sister as the surrogate is like so incredibly uncomfortably disgusting. And then the nurse also only really begins acknowledging Rose and the baby and like completely ignoring Fern. And in her delirium, right, she's on all kinds of like pain medications after giving birth. She asks Rose like, hey, I talked to Wally. Why did you ask him for money? Like, why would he give the baby money or give you money for the baby, right? He doesn't know she's his daughter. And besides, do you really even need the money? Surely Owen makes enough to support her. And so Rose says, I wasn't going to tell you until after I took Alice. She's decided to name the baby Alice, apparently. Took Alice home, but as it turns out, Owen wasn't coping so well with the idea of raising another man's child. After giving it a lot of thought, he's decided he can't do it. He's staying in London indefinitely. I know how important it is to you that this baby is raised in a two-parent family, but it wasn't meant to be. Look, you've had a big 24 hours, but what you need right now is sleep. I'll get the nurse to get you some more painkillers. Everything will make sense later. And it's like, in this moment, she does accept more of the painkillers, right? And she's thinking of like, I completely understand why people could get addicted to this, because it's just, I can distract myself from the craziness that is my life, right? I can distract from Wally and the baby and Rose and like blah, blah, blah. It's just very, very sad. Then there's a point where this woman comes in. She is, I guess, like the formal person to help process the adoption paperwork and like to, you know what I mean, give up the relinquished parental rights and, you know, hey, are you sure? Like, you don't know who the dad is? Like, we're going to do the birth certificate without the dad's name on there and all this other stuff. And she's hesitant about signing any of this or moving forward with any of this because the problem is, I realize that there are two Roses, the Rose that I rely on and the other Rose, the Rose who hated mom, the Rose who goes behind my back to speak to Wally, the Rose who would possibly betray me to get to the baby she wants so badly. I don't know which Rose I'm getting. I don't know which Rose my baby would get. And so she says, if it's all right, I'll get back to you about signing the adoption paperwork. Back into the journal entries, she's saying, yeah, everybody believed that it was an accidental drowning, that Billy drowned accidentally. Everybody did. And Fern got away with murder. But lately, I'm wondering if I did the wrong thing, covering for her. Maybe by not allowing her to face the consequences of her actions, I've created a monster. There's no doubt that Fern can be dangerous when she's angry, and now that there's a baby involved, I'm terrified that she will pay the price for my mistake. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness gracious. Back to Fern. Like I said, she's taken all the medication she can because oblivion is preferable to all of the thoughts swirling in my mind. Owen's not going to raise the baby with Rose. Rose wants Wally to give her money. Wally thinks there's something wrong with Rose. Mom is dead, and Rose was the last person to see her. It's too much for my brain to handle. Oh, no. And then all of a sudden, she hears Wally outside of her hospital room asking to see her, right? But again, she like just got doped up, and so she can't sit up or respond or anything because she's like really dizzy and overwhelmed. And so Rose ends up like stepping outside and shutting the door and having this like pretty vocal fight with Wally in the hallway about how she's sleeping and you don't understand and she's gonna give me the baby. Like whatever, giving the baby to me. He's like, why would she do that? You don't understand. You know, Fern can't be a good mom. And he says, of course she is. I think Fern would make a terrific mother. Rose says, you don't understand how bad she is. He says, are you talking about the boy who drowned when you were 12? Because she did tell me about that. And I don't believe it. It was an accident. Rose says, it's true. I was there. I'm the only person on earth who knows the truth about what happened. But that isn't true. There was someone else at the river that night. Someone other than her, me, and Billy. So now we get the event from Fern's point of view. Her point of view is that Rose had asked her to hold Billy underwater. She had given the idea of like they were competing, right? Rose was watching from the ground. Fern and Billy were in the river trying to hold their breath and who could do it the longest. Billy kept failing. And so Rose was like, called Fern over and she's like, hey, how about you just like hold him under? How about you help him out? Like he wants to win so badly. How about you help him out? I'll keep a count on my watch. Don't worry. Like I'll keep the 40-second count on my watch and I'll let you know when the time's up. And so she was holding him under and she's talking about, you know, him flailing and all this other stuff. And eventually it stops. And she just kept asking her sister, like, has it been 40 seconds? This feels like it's been a really long time. And she kept saying, no, it hasn't been 40 seconds yet. Keep going. It hasn't been 40 seconds yet. Oh my God. It felt like an eternity before she gave me the nod to release him. And then the mom comes running over, you know, freaking out, seeing that this boy is dead, starts performing CPR, all this other stuff. like I said, Fern is the one that pulled him out and was doing CPR. Mom comes up, follows, does so as well. Fern is like catatonic in a sad way. Rose is catatonic in a way that she's just like, I don't know, just watching this happen without like any type of engagement. And so then the mom is like cursing and praying and doing all this stuff and trying to save this boy. And then she looks up and she's like, somebody has to tell me like who did this, like what happened. Fern says that she did, that it was an accident. And then she looks over at Rose when the mom asks a follow-up question and she realizes like, oh, like you told her to do that? Like she pieces it together immediately. Like Fern wouldn't do this. Like this, you told her. Like there was some other like shenanigans going on here. And Rose says, oh, of course it's my fault. Nothing could ever be the fault of precious Fern. Mom stood up and grabbed Rose so tightly that her feet lifted off the ground. Billy is dead, Rose. Do you understand that? Yes, Rose said evenly. I understand. And now you've implicated your sister. You've always hated me, Rose shouted, crying now. You've only ever loved Fern. Everyone loves Fern. Mom let go of Rose and lifted a hand to Rose's face before hesitating and dropping it down. I don't hate you, Rose. I don't hate you, Rose, but it does feel like you've spent your entire life trying to make me prove I love you, and now a boy is dead. Mom looked at Billy's lifeless body and then up again, meeting Rose's gaze. If you want to prove that you love me, Rose said, then this is your chance. Holy shit. Oh my God. So eventually Wally ends up being forced essentially to leave the hospital without meeting Fern. Fern having all these memories, all these thoughts, everything. The second that Rose leaves to go to Target to go and pick up some things, she immediately like packs up her stuff, collects the baby, checks out of the hospital, and decides to go to the library, right? It's like her one safe spot that she can like escape to because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know who's right and who's wrong and what the right option is. And Wally came after her. Wally did look for her. He does care about her. And I don't know, man, she's just all tore up, right? So she leaves the hospital and she feels like she's kidnapping this child. But technically, right, we know that she's not. She didn't sign those adoption papers or anything. Like, this is still her baby, but she feels like she's on the run. And the way that freaking Rose has been acting like this baby is 100% hers is also just inappropriate and weird right now. But she takes the kid and makes a run for it, quote unquote, right? Goes to the library, finds a little safe spot. She's back here, just trying to find some peace and quiet. But the baby cries. So Carmel, the library boss lady, hears it, comes to find her, asks what's going on. She's like, oh my God, you had your baby, but why aren't you in the hospital? Like, what's happening here? So she opens up, right? She says how she doesn't have a plan. She just wants to call Wally. Like, that's all she just needs to get a hold of him, and opens up to Carmel about how she tells Carmel she kidnapped the baby, and Carmel's like, this is your baby. She's like, no, I agreed for my sister to adopt it and blah, 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 but it's complicated. I changed my mind. I don't want her to have it anymore. And Carmel just says, yeah, I have a sister. I understand. She's like, there's a silent connection between us that, like, I know she gets it. Which is also so funny to me. But there's no reception in the little secret room that they're in. So they're going to have to go out into the library so that they can call Wally, right? It's fine. It's a quiet day. She says, just keep your head down and nobody will bother you. But the second that they get out of the secret cupboard and into the, like, big library area, there are police. And the police are asking her to give the baby to them. And then she looks up and Rose is at like the front desk and is like causing a scene there. Rose turns, sees Fern holding the baby. It's like a whole thing, like an absolute whole ordeal breaks out right now because everybody's trying to take her kid away from her. And this is the trigger warning for the like forced institutionalization, okay? Just a heads up, that's what we're about to get into. And that's, like I said, like that's what we're about to get into, right? So Fern, it like blacks out, ends up getting like a sedative or something, wakes up handcuffed in a hospital bed, and the baby is now in the pediatric wing of the hospital to make sure that the kid's okay. She didn't hurt the kid. She didn't do anything like that. But when they came there, they were saying that she was going through like a psychotic episode or whatever because she ended up getting overstimulated and freaking out about everybody trying to take her kid, which, hey, man, has nothing to do with the neurodivergent thing. I think any mom would freak the fuck out if somebody was trying to take your brand new baby from your arms. And there's a psychiatrist that visits her to talk to her a little bit, and then eventually a detective comes in to visit her, and she thinks that they're investigating her for kidnapping. But again, the detective says, hey, we weren't there. You didn't kidnap your own kid. But she doesn't really listen to this. And so the detective kind of shifts tactics, and she's just trying to talk to her about other things and asking her questions, And she's like, oh, hey, by the way, I like your bracelet, which is, right, the bracelet that we talked about way earlier. Fern has one that has a little fern on it, and then Rose has one with a little rose on it and whatnot. She says, I like your bracelet, she says bizarrely. I can only deduce that making small talk helps perps talk. Is that a bush engraved on there? A fern, because that's my name. It's a lovely name, the bracelet, or it's lovely, the name and the bracelet. Congratulations, by the way. I hear you had a baby girl. Where is she? She's in the pediatric wing with my sister. Detective looks surprised. Why isn't she with you? I frown. Because I kidnapped her. Didn't you hear? You kidnapped your own child? At least that's what my sister's telling people. And so the detective is like very perturbed by this. And she's like, well, that's kind of weird. How about you tell me a little bit about your sister? And so she says, I don't know, like that's such a broad question, but we're twins, fraternal twins, and we are very different. She's short, I'm tall, she has no sensory issues, but I do, and she's diabetic and I'm not. The detective writes on her notepad a little bit more of like a back and forth and answering some questions. And eventually the detective makes a comment about like, hey, I'm sorry about your mom, by the way. Like I spoke to the hospital staff. Fern says, whoa, hold up. Why would you have spoken to the hospital, like to Sun Meadows, right? To the place where mom was living? Why would you talk to them? It's just part of our investigation. Your mother's cause of death isn't clear, so we just wanted to check up on a few things. We understand that your sister hadn't visited in a very long time until she went the night before your mother died. Why was that? Didn't she have a good relationship with your mother? Rose? I laugh. She didn't have a relationship with mom at all. She never spoke to her? Well, no one spoke with mom. After her overdose, mom couldn't say 2 words. She improved a little over the last year. She was starting to talk in short sentences. Recently, she told me not to give Rose my baby. If only I had listened. That's a pretty bold statement, the detective says. Why do you think she would say that? I don't understand. Why are you asking about Rose and my mother? Aren't you here to charge me with kidnapping? She smiles. Not at this point. She taps my bracelet with her pen. Let me guess. Your sister has a matching one? Yes, but with a rose on it. Because her name is Rose? I nod, and she rises to her feet. You've been very helpful. That's all I need for now. Wait, my voice is hoarse. The detective raises her eyebrows. Will I get my baby back? More than anything, I wish I had the ability to read other people's facial expressions, because when Detective Brooks narrows her eyes and says, leave it with me, I have absolutely no idea what she means. Couple hours pass. Still no baby, still no nothing, but eventually there is somebody knocking on her door, and it is Owen, Rose's husband. Rose had called him. She does that when she gets herself into trouble. And she's like, so you came all the way from London? I haven't been in London. I've been in Brunswick. I've been living on the other side of town. What are you talking about? Like, I've been on the other side of the city. I'm not that far away. What are we doing here? You've obviously, no wonder you're in the psychiatric unit. Back and forth. She realizes they have been separated for months. Like, Owen and Rose separated months ago because he's pretty sure that she is, like, narcissistic. And he's like, I tried to stop by the library a couple times and see you. He was the mystery man that tried to stop by her flat and stop by the library and everything. He's like, yeah, I tried reaching out. I tried telling you what was going on. And when you never responded to me, I figured she had like convinced you or like turned you against me as well. But yeah, I left her. Things hadn't been good between us for years. She was so changeable, happy one minute, enraged the next. I couldn't live like that. I suggested counseling, but she wasn't interested. It was all my fault. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take it with her mind games. One minute she was sweet and kind, and the next she was ridiculing me in front of our friends. If I became upset with her, she said I was too sensitive, and it was all a joke. If I gave an opinion that differed from hers, she didn't speak to me for days. And her sense of grandiosity. She spent so much money, more than we had. She was forever quitting her job or getting fired. I honestly don't know which, but it never curbed her spending. I don't think she held a job for longer than a year for the whole time I've known her. At first, I thought she had bad luck, but then it kept happening. I stopped asking her about it because she would get furious if I brought it up. More time passes. He eventually steps out. The detective returns. When the detective returns, Fern thinks that she's there to arrest her, so she has a little bit of a panic attack, but the detective helps to calm her down and then says, like, hey, like, you're fine, not being charged with kidnapping. She's like, so why did the police show up? Like, why did they come and take Willow? My understanding is that your sister called to report you and your baby's sudden departure from the hospital. This would have prompted a welfare check from the police. As you were distressed when they found you, a request for a psych assessment would have been made. And I'm not privy to those, but there's no suggestion that you kidnapped your daughter. And then she says, but I do have some news. We have the autopsy report, and it shows 2 hypodermic needle sites just under your mother's hairline, and this indicates foul play. Like, it is kind of strange. It had us a little baffled as well until you mentioned that your sister was diabetic, which would mean that she had these needles and insulin and had inserted insulin into the mom and, I don't know, made her die, go into a coma, something. I don't know. What's insulin do? Makes you, if you don't need it, gets your blood sugar way too low, go into a little coma, I guess. But yeah, so they're like, yeah, I don't know. There's a motive and the things are guilty and I don't know. Yeah, your sister's going to jail though. Sorry. It's not funny, but she's getting arrested, which is like good news. And eventually now the next person who comes in is Wally. She's just getting visits from all of these freaking people. Wally comes in, he says hi to her. He's like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. She says, I have to tell you something. It's your baby. He says, why didn't you tell me? I wanted to. I should have, but I didn't think I was capable of raising a baby, after what happened with Billy, and you said you didn't want a baby. I did say that, didn't I? I don't know why. I guess because it was a theoretical answer. I enjoy answering theoretical questions, but if you'd told me you wanted a baby or that you were pregnant, I promise you would have gotten a different answer. And before they can really unpack that anymore, the nurses come in knocking on the door and return baby Willow. That's the name that Fern gives the kid, Willow, not Alice. And instantly, Wally just falls madly in love with this kid. Like, he is so incredibly happy to be a dad, and he is taking such good care of both of them. He starts looking up all these crazy apps to help her track everything, and they start finding these new routines. And it's a lot of discussion on these last couple of chapters about building new routines and finding comfort in this and like tackling all of these things together and trying to find this like new normal. Eventually she tells him like, I'm glad that you are my person. He looks up at me and smiles. I think a few people might fight me for that role. My face must convey my confusion. I don't think you realize how many people you have, Fern. Carmel, Gail, your other library colleagues, Owen, and yes, me. And don't forget Willow. This is so freaking cute. And so then he goes on to be like, hey, so it was Rose who convinced you that you wouldn't be able to raise a kid, right? Like, that's who it was? Is it just the Billy thing that worries you? It's mostly that, but also my sensory issues. You have to admit, I'm not the ideal mother. What if the baby wants to watch fireworks or have a birthday party? I couldn't even handle school pickup and drop off with all those shrieking children and swarms of mothers in puffer jackets making small talk. Wally thinks about this. Okay, well, I'll do the school pickups and drop offs and birthday parties. You? When? When would you do the school drop off? When you're in your van creating your app? When you're traveling around the world promoting follow up? I sold follow up, Fern. You sold it already? For a lot of money. It makes the deal of Shout look cheap. So I can do the school run every day if you like. You can stay home or go to work at the library or come to the school pickup with me and wait in the car. You can do whatever you like. That makes me want to cry. I'm not gonna lie. And so then she goes on to tell Wally of like, hey, there's one final thing that I have to tell you, which is the pregnancy wasn't an accident. And he frowns. She says, yeah, Rose couldn't have a baby. She confessed this to me when I found prenatal vitamins in her bag and assumed she was pregnant. It turned out she'd been trying for a baby for a while and couldn't have one. So I decided to have a baby for her. It sounds crazy, I know. I just thought I can have a baby and Rose can't, so why wouldn't I help her out? It seemed so simple. And then I met you and you asked me on a date so you could become pregnant with a baby for your sister. Yes. Wally places both hands on his temples. Wow. But by the time we had sex, I wasn't even thinking about that anymore. I wasn't thinking about... Wally walks to the corner of the room, shaking his head. Wow, it's genius. What is? Rose. What do you mean? She must have known what you would do if you found out she couldn't have a baby. But she didn't tell me she wanted a baby. I found her vitamins, which she just happened to leave lying around. I think about this, but I don't believe it. You think she did that on purpose, so I would realize she wanted a baby and try to have one for her? I wouldn't be surprised. Well, in any case, I'm sorry. Wally walks back to my bedside. He looks down at Willow. I'll never get tired of the way he looks at her. You know what's funny? I'm not. Aww. When I'm released from the hospital, we go back to Wally's new flat, stopping by Rose's en route to collect Alfie. I knew somebody was going to be worried about it. Don't worry. The dog is fine and safe and lives with them happily. They get adjusted to life having this baby and living together, and he takes the dogs on walks all the time while she stays home with the little baby. And then 2 days after we get home from the hospital is a Thursday. My first Thursday, I realize, as a mother and without a mother. The fact that I'm not visiting Mom is made both better and worse by Willow's existence, though I can't help but think what a magnificent Thursday it would have been if I could have taken my daughter to meet my mother. And that almost made me freaking cry. And so then they go on to talk about she gets called to the police station because there's been some progress in her sister's case. And Wally had suggested to her that she call ahead and tell the detective about her sensory issues. And so they arrive and it's been like accommodated. They got her like this little separate room thing in this car and like little separate car parking spot. And they're in this like more quiet room and dim the lights and all these other things so that they can have a more open conversation without all of the extra added stress. As it turns out, her son has similar issues and she was happy to make accommodations so I would be more comfortable. I found that a lot of people have been happy to accommodate me, actually, once they realized my challenges. All this time, I'd thought Rose was the only person who understood how to care for me. How wrong I was. No. So why are they at the detectives, you're asking? Well, they found that journal that Rose has been working on, the journal entries that I've been reading you this entire time. Turns out she's been keeping track of this diary, doing all these entries for the last couple of months, and the detectives believe that she's doing it as a way to have, like, discredited Fern's ability to take care of the kid and to, like, build the case of the importance of the adoption or how, like, she's the more appropriate option to be, you know, the parent. And she's like, but I don't understand, like, why she would do that. And so the detective's like, just read through it, okay? So she does, and she's like, none of these are right. Like, these memories that she has, all of those recollections of the childhood abuse. Fern is like, when I colored on the table, Mom didn't yell at us. Mom laughed. Mom thought that it was hilarious that I did that. And Rose is the one who got mad because she knew that if she did that, Mom would be mad at her. And so Rose threw a fit, went into her room and broke all of my toys. Like, that's not what happened. All of these stories are different, right? Every single one of them, like, completely making all of these different things up. And the detective says, you know, there's two particular entries that we're interested in, and they, like, earmarked them, and it's the ones that are about Billy. Those ones are pretty accurate, right? She's like, I can't believe she would write about this. Like, we said that we never would. Like, she told me to never talk about what happened. And so again, she's pushing back and she's like, I just don't understand why, right? Detective says this whole, like, groundwork to make you seem like you couldn't take care of the kid. And she's like, okay, cool. Like, if that was the case from the beginning, why would she do it now? She's in jail. No one's going to give her the baby now. Surely she doesn't want the baby taken away from me and given to a stranger. Well, I don't know, the detective admits, but I have a feeling it's a sister thing. The only parts of it that are true or may have been true or whatever is with the mother's ex-boyfriend, the creepy guy that had, like, assaulted her, because he did try to assault Fern as well, and then she had kicked him and scared him off and stuff. So she's like, there's some truth there. And then, so she told the truth about the Billy situation, right? She said that Fern drowned him, but she lied about the other stuff, about her being there, right? Rose had lied about being in the woods, but why would she do that? Like, she told the truth that Fern is the one that hurt him, so why would she lie about that part of it? Like, it's so weird. So Fern is, like, brainstorming this with Wally, and he says, that is weird. But you said it was Rose's idea to hold him under, and she kept time while you held him down? Yeah, and didn't you say it felt like a long time? Maybe it was. It takes me a minute to understand where Wally is leading me. Rose told me to hold Billy down. She told me how long to hold him, and then she made up a story saying that she wasn't there. It makes sense. Why else would she need to make up a story about it? No, Rose wouldn't do that. I'm sorry, Fern, but I think she would. It takes me a minute to realize the ramifications of this. So I didn't kill Billy? Wally shakes his head. I don't think you did. Before I know it, tears are streaming down my cheeks. If this is true, Wally, it means I can be trusted with my baby, doesn't it? Oh my God. Yes, Fern. Wally wipes a tear from my cheek. It does. I let out a sob. Wally comes to my side and I allow him to hold me for the longest time. I can be trusted with my baby. I tell myself, I can be trusted with my baby. I understand it's true. It's just that after all these years, it's going to take a little while for me to believe it. So incredibly freaking cute. And then 3 months later, she's at the library and they're doing the toddler rhyme time that we opened up the book with. Now she's attending it as a mother. So incredibly cute, but it's same thing. Also very overwhelming, and so she has her headphones on and her goggles on, and Wally also is wearing goggles, and them doing that led other parents to make some accommodations for their kids. Some of the other kids are also wearing some headphones because it's a little bit overwhelming, and eventually it led to the library asking her if she would host a sensory friendly rhyme time session where the music would be soft and the lights kept low. So freaking awesome. And then the library family is fine with her bringing the baby whenever she needs to, and Wally and her are just living their best life. And besides, since Willow and I were released from the hospital, Wally and I have divided our time between staring at Willow and frantically reading books about how to raise a baby. And while it hasn't been a bad existence, I'm missing my routine. Besides, Carmel has told me that Wally is welcome to bring Willow in anytime we like. I'm glad, because I think Mom was right when she said that taking a child to the library is the very best education you could give a child. Willow is going to be very educated. I still haven't visited Rose. I've felt the pull, definitely felt it, but for now I'm ignoring this particular pull. At Wally's urging, I've had a few sessions with a very nice therapist named Kevin. He wouldn't comment on Rose's mental health without seeing her, but last week he did pose a couple of interesting questions that I'm still ruminating on a week later. How does your relationship with Rose serve you? How has it ever served you? Until I have an answer, he said, perhaps hold off on visiting. So I am, until I have an answer. And then the woman that's hosting this particular rhyme time is affixing an imaginary cape onto Wally's back when I realize it's time for me to take my leave. I may have been making improvements in recent weeks, but pretending to fly in an imaginary cape is beyond even my new capabilities. I hand Willow to Wally and retire to the secret cupboard for a couple of minutes of quiet reading instead. I'm beginning to think Wally was right when he said I was normal and everyone else was a weirdo. And our book ends with journal entries that I don't want to read you, to be quite frank with you. I don't want to read them to you at all because it ruined the book for me. So go ahead and end the video here, take what I said to you, and move on with your life, okay? Just trust me in this, but I will tell you just because I'm sure you're curious. So this is the final entry from Rose. It's a 3 months later entry that she's making, and she's talking about how she was advised to continue doing this, and she is able to have visitors, but no one's visited her at all over the last 3 months. As far as I'm concerned, Billy got what he deserved, flirting with me all week and then taking Fern down to the river and kissing her. It was clear Fern wasn't his peer. She was vulnerable. Billy was no better than Gary, the mom's creepy boyfriend. And then talking about how after the kid died, the mother had become so depressed and despondent that she had to go to the doctor for sedatives, which made her even more useless than normal. 16 years ago, it was easy for a 12-year-old like me to Google how to administer insulin to the hairline. That's crazy. So once Mom was out for the count on Valium, I had no trouble at all. I was hoping she would die, but a brain injury wasn't a bad result. I thought that would be the end of it. So she poisoned her mom. And there's a book that I did recently that was revealed in the epilogue that she had killed her mom. I'm not going to tell you which book because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I feel like I'm reading that author again. And all of a sudden I'm pissed off. I had such a good time up until this. And then she always did what I wanted her to, talking about Fern. Of course she did. I'd spent a lifetime making her reliant on me, planting the idea that she couldn't be relied on, telling her she forgot to pick up milk or left the oven on, telling her she was supposed to feed Alfie. That one really got to her head. The result was that she did everything I asked, single-mindedly and perfectly. It was what made her such a great sister, and she didn't let me down. It only took 10-day staycation just outside of Melbourne, aka London, to get the job done. Oh my God. And so then she, after hearing that her mom could talk, decided to go and visit the mom at the hospital, and the first thing that the mom says is, "Don't take Fern's baby." 10 years, first time I see her, and that's what she said. Can anyone blame me for what I did? She didn't fight me. Why would she? The last time I tried to kill her, she ended up with a brain injury. We both know I wouldn't make the same mistake again. journal entry ends. And then we get the first chapter ever, first input ever from Rose's POV. And she's thinking, this is exactly what they want me to do. They think I'm just going to confess everything in such a tiny, tidy way. Tears up the letter, throws it in the air like confetti. And then she's like, what would I do that for? I did everyone a favor. Billy was a pervert, and Mom should have been dead 16 years ago. And as for Fern's baby, I'm the one who cares enough about her to not want her to be raised by an imbecile. Imbecile? A pair of imbeciles. Time and time again, people have rallied against me. Now I know I have no one, not even Fern. Fine by me. I open my diary on a fresh page, and I have another entry to make. I'll start with Fern's recent interest in my insulin dosage and how to administer it. I'll say she and Mom hadn't been getting along and she'd been resenting having to visit her every week. Then I'll mention how Fern had always loved my bracelet and how finally a few months ago I had agreed to lend it to her. What do you think of that, Fern? I smile. I hope she's enjoying her time with my baby, because once this journal is in circulation, she won't have her for long. I'm telling you, Fern might be the librarian, but I'm the one who can spin a tale. Girl, that last chapter was not necessary. Not necessary at all, actually. That, again, ruined the entire book for me. What the hell? Why did we do that? For what reason? And also, that's not even accurate, because the detective already said that they've worked with master manipulators before, and they don't believe the journal entries, and they think it was all just like a setup or whatever. And also, Billy's thing, since it's like kind of hearsay at that point, and it would be like a she said for a murder that happened like 20 years ago by this point, they're not going to reopen that case. So they're just going to let sleeping dogs lie, I guess, with this accidental drowning situation. If you're curious about that, that's just a thing. I don't know. Book ends. Yay. I don't know how I feel. Like I said, I was good until that last chapter. I really liked it though. I liked Wally's relationship with her. I liked how she was true to herself until the end. And everybody was super understanding, but still treating her like an adult. Like, it didn't feel like infantilizing like we see in some of the other books. It's just like, it is what it is. This is what I need. This makes me freak out. This is how I make adjustments in my life to accommodate these things, to like push through. You know, Wally has sensory issues to a lesser degree where he's able to cope with it, but not happily. So there's like some good cross representation there of like the spectrum of difficulty with these different things. I think that was handled well. I think the other people in her life supporting her was really well. It didn't feel catty. It didn't feel like there was all this like, you know what I mean? I feel like these other tropes that we run into with these thriller books, I think this is incredibly solid. Up until the last part where all of a sudden the sister just turns out to be some raging crazy instead of like a good reason for it. Like, we could have had a little bit more character depth there instead of just being evil. You know what I'm saying? Like, would have loved to have had some other thing for her. It felt like there wasn't a good character arc for the sister to turn out as bad as she was. Like, I needed a little bit more justification on her end, or a little bit more like reasoning or continued evidence of it. I think it did a pretty good job of like sprinkling in her like gaslighting her sister, but like, I don't know. I honest to God don't know. So how did you feel? How did you like it? Have you read anything else by Sally Hempworth? Her writing style's not bad. I actually kind of enjoyed her writing. There wasn't anything crazy like grammatically that I was like, oh my God, like I see in other books. So I would definitely read more by her. Let me know if you have any recommendations. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.